Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Pegasus Actual Podcast. This is Supreme Heretic. Obviously, you guys know me from such places as Bounding Into Comics, thickestofall.com, and of course, my YouTube channel right here. Tonight, of course, we have the author Stephen Welton, the man, the chronicler, if you will, of the Phantom Menace. I'm the journalist of Phantom Menace. He's the the
man,
guy,
the myth, the legend.
historian.
I do my best when I come on Drew's channel not to mention the Phantom Menace, not to talk about the volumes, and the first thing he does.
That's right. It is what it is. So we have our friend Raquel, who is lovely, beautiful, intelligent, and she just exudes professionalism. Absolutely, positively.
Hi, everyone. I love you. Thank you for coming. It's so sweet of you to show up and listen to us talk about this. And I'm excited. Let's do this. Nice to see everyone.
And the man will add himself to your smoothie. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, boy.
And of course, we have our esteemed best buddy, script doctor, the whitest man on the internet.
Dun, 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 dun.
And
they're catching on is kind of disturbing.
he needs no introduction because everybody knows him. So there you go. It's going to be the four of us tonight, you guys. Fortunately, Bear Nerd Fun could not make it this week. And we don't have a guest this week, but next week we do have. For the life of me, I can't.
And we are still waiting for Brian the Gravedigger to come back. All right?
Yeah. We love Brian. Brian, yes, everybody, we miss you.
Yeah, I believe. What was that project she did with Kel? I think Kat King's gonna come on with us next week.
Oh, no way!
Yeah,
cool.
So,
wow.
Really? What was that project that they're working on again?
She's an executive producer, and they're working on Project Abaddon.
That's what it was.
Which is a
Abaddon or Abaddon?
Reference, and it's a bunch of people from Star Trek.
Abaddon script doctor.
Wow.
Abaddon? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because I know a horror thing called Abaddon that from years ago.
Now, Project Abaddon does have Garrett Wang in it that was on Voyager, and some other people that were tied to Star Trek. And we'll have Kat explain it next week when she's in with us. She'll be covering the episode Fragged with us next week. So that'll
be nice.
Yay! Thanks, Kat.
So, Mando Merck, I see you here. Adega, it's good to see you, my friend. Of course, the wonderful and beautiful Lady Mist, the lady of our podcast, because she is always here, man. She's like the biggest supporter. My boy Markrell, and yeah, I know Mar is flipping me shit because I didn't answer him on Discord. Yeah, I know, Mar. You think I'm a bad friend? I get it. I'll hit you up after the show. Random Brad Creates is here. We got we're already getting a bunch of people in the chat, and I see CJ just popped in. Hey, okay. So all right, guys, what did we think of this latest episode? Because we're getting into Valley of Darkness.
No, I don't know. It's a good episode. I think it's a good episode. I don't think it's the best episode. There are some continuity issues and there are some mistakes in it, but I mean, and I'm not, I don't know. Jury's out. I want to hear what SD and Steven have to say, and of course you, Drew, before I decide, because I like to bounce ideas. So I just
I tend to kind of gush over this episode. This is one of my favorites because I always liked it as the sort of scary episode. This was like the one that I would watch on Halloween, especially I like the tension of the Centurions trying to blow up the ship and make their way to the damage control. And just the sort of not gratuitous, not over the top, but the sort of gore when they run into the first Cylon. And then also there's just this sense of dread and terror throughout with the pilots and some of the people running for their lives, and I like that.
Well,
There's a definitely like that sort of like Halloween feel to it, and I enjoyed that.
aside from what we've seen on Silent Occupied Caprica with the Hilo and Sharon storyline, we haven't really seen combat between the Centurions and people that much in the series so far. It's always been space battles. So for me, I really enjoyed that aspect of the show. And I don't know, maybe it's the gamer in me, but a lot of the different things that were going on reminded me of gaming missions.
Yeah.
Especially, like when they go in, when they get Rosalind out of prison, I'm like, that is a mission from a game. That would be an awesome mission, escorting the president. So it's, there's a few issues here and there that I had with it, but overall I enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one more than the previous episode. And that's basically because there's a lot of clarity for the objectives and what's going on. I relished in Angel 6's manipulation of Gaius at the start. I mean, how she plays, like she's doing 4D chess on him, and it's great. And I really like it, and I like the fact that it's kind of like forcing him to sort of challenge his own manipulation in a way where he had in the first episode he had no real compassion towards the baby, nothing at least honest about it. But as soon as the dream that happens in that first act occurs, it's completely like he has far more. It almost appeals to his human nature of him as opposed to when it was just completely self-serving. And I really liked that beat that he went through. And I also like the fact that this is the episode where all the chickens kind of come home to roost from the setup that happened in the previous episode. I understand the continuity issues. My understanding being like most likely what you guys were all thinking that I was thinking about the explosive rounds versus what we saw on Caprica with Hilo from last season. That's one of them that pointed out. I think there's also like a time jump that was talked about with Candice and Billy.
Yeah, that was weird. I was like, what are you talking about? You guys were dancing 2 days ago. It hasn't been a fortnight. It's been 2 days, guys. This is 48 hours with Eddie Murphy, or not Eddie Murphy. Who's 48 hours again?
Nick Nolte.
I don't know.
No, you're right. It's Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy is in 48 hours. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, no, okay, so I was right. Yeah, anyways, it's 48 hours, not a fortnight.
But
so what the heck happened there?
But y'all mentioned my girl, my future ex-wife, Candice McClure. We start this episode out with Candice. Oh, thank God. And we get to see her like, disheveled and kind of weak and like, oh my God, I love that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like the part of me that wants to be a hero. But man, I love Candice in this episode.
Well, she wasn't weak. She was just vulnerable because as soon as Austin says address her by rank, she kind of like, kind of almost reset, but not quite. But she's just kind of exposed and vulnerable, and she didn't need the man. She just needed some confidence booster, and that was just facilitated by the other characters. And one of them happened to be the guy she's stooping. So it's
the guy she's what? Say that again.
Another boo-boo as well, right? And that's when the guy, when they're in the corridor, he yells Jesus, and I was like, hey, you're not supposed to know about the Lord.
Not unless there's some sort of really crazy guy among the colonies named Jesus.
I would like to make a decree for the Pegasus Actual podcast. Whenever we refer to sex in the future, it shall be known as stooping. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. And
your mother Stupper.
Stupper. Yeah, and there's also the Frigidaire makes an appearance here, so I hope they got paid. So yeah. And other than that, I'm free.
Out of all the people on this panel, the one that noticed the ass scene and brought it up was Raquel. I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of you.
Well, yeah, so those are my gripes. Now let's get to the beauty. Oh, there's some nice butt.
In honor of you, Raquel.
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome.
Okay, so look at those are great panties.
Yeah, it'd be great in my mouth.
Don't eat the panties.
Jesus.
Take off the wrapper, Steven. Take off the wrapper. Okay.
Don't eat them if you find them on the floor.
No,
All sorts of weird crunch.
Okay, now you're going too far, SD.
Yeah.
Drew, please keep us going. What are we doing now?
Oh, just continue on with the episode, please.
We didn't start it yet.
No.
So-
Does somebody want to start? I can start, Steve.
Yeah, please. No, your notes are fantastic. Please.
Oh, really? Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm going off memory tonight. I haven't written anything down. I've been nose deep in research most of the day. So, yes, whoever has handwritten notes, let's start this off that way.
You were writing last night. I saw on your Twitter. You were writing last night. So you're, obviously you wouldn't have notes. You were working a little keister off.
No.
Okay, so after the
yeah.
title sequence and the previously on, we cut to a scene where Billy and Dee have an awkward moment in the corridor. Billy has serious feels. Dee blows him off. They politely, albeit bitterly, describe one another's behavior during the coup. Dee hurts Billy's fifis by calling him out on the mutiny, and their stalled romance has a catastrophic engine failure. They walk away from one another. Boo!
Yeah, she did
It's
have
quite
his
interesting
hotel.
that she used it. It's quite interesting that she uses the term mutiny because he was kind of defending the presidency and the military was coming in to sort of take it over. So it's kind of defending a coup, as it were.
But from her perspective, it would be
Yes.
her military perspective. She's
And a
loyal to
full
Obama.
coup d'état is when the military deposes a president. So this was like the ultimate coup, right? This is the full coup d'état. So yeah, it's I wouldn't describe it as a mutiny, but it seems as though the allegiances here are they run pretty hot and heavy. Like there's a big chasm between who you're going to side with when the chips are down, right?
And I love the fact that conflict plays into the love of these two characters that they have for each other. It's where do the loyalties lie? Is it better to work together with each other, or do they just stay where they know it's safe and comfortable?
Do you buy Billy being able to snag Dee?
No.
Yeah, me neither. It's like, dude, I think it's really cute that you're a 5.5 and she's a 9.8.
She needs a man. She needs a
Right?
real man.
But I mean, credit to both actors. I think they did a wonderful job in creating some chemistry. It's just, wow, that is a very, very attractive young lady.
Yes.
And Billy's sort of like, he could probably go on Beauty and the Geek Australia.
Well, hey, hold up.
Here we
Okay.
go.
There's only 47,000 people, so I guess he seems pretty good compared to the
Yeah,
others.
Steve, that's a good point.
I listen. I myself, being a rather a subpar attractive man, I like to think I can at least pull a beauty here.
He said subpar.
Why'd you say subpar?
Subpar. Drew, how many times you get laid this week?
Yeah.
Well, once so far.
Yeah, I have been laid 0.
Good afternoon
All right.
delight this morning, and you were TMIing it all over Twitter. Let's just stick to slim pickings.
I'm sorry. Stupping. My bad.
Stumping.
See, this has been working so much. I didn't even catch this on Twitter. I went on Twitter like an hour ago just to see what's going on.
Like TMI.
Oh man! By the way, it's great in the chat to see Palanuki has arrived. Shout out to Palanuki, my anime writer at sickestofall.com. Great friend of the show as well. And I see that our boy Loki's Mornings of Mischief is here, aka Stone Loki. Good to see you, homie. Parrothead's here. Hail to you. And yeah, man, we just got a cast of thousands showing up in the chat. And my boy Toxic Man Flu. What up, Tox?
Oh, hey, Toxic's here. Nice.
Yeah. Exactly, man.
Loki's Morning of Mischief has a Boxy Theory already. You want to just get through this?
Oh, here we go.
Let's do it. Let's start it off.
Okay. Oh.
What is this? Toxic Man Flu's comment 724. Just wait 1 second before we post that.
Oh, hold on.
Please, can we please put that one up first? Toxic Man Flu 7:24 p.m.
Oh, gosh.
That's
Drew
9:24 our time.
Drops his.
Oh gosh, where is this at? Did you say 9:24?
It's above Loki's second Boxy Theory. Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Drew walks into a bar, drops his manhood on the floor, and the girl that stays on her feet after the earthquake is the winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Oh, Drew, I had no idea. Yours was detachable.
Jesus Christ, toxic.
Okay, thank you, Toxic Man Flu. Love you, man.
Oh, wow.
On to Boxy Theories.
Maharishi Boxy say, he who lives by the sword dies, said Cylons use guns.
Don't
Don't be a tie.
I like that. Let's see. Boxy Theory. Tidy Whitey Bandit continues his spree of terror. Commander Adama's noodle still missing after 24-hour search. We will update the story as it goes. Oh, man.
Hail to the chat. Hello to you too, Lady Mist. Hello to everyone. Thank you so much for coming, you guys. The show is nothing without you. You guys make everything roll and you make everything fun. Thank you so much for showing up. We're going to do our best to give you the best show possible.
Boxy Theory update from Loki. Bottle of Capricorn whiskey stolen from ship's Exo's quarters. Exo makes statement. It's in the fracking ship. More news to come. Moira Kitty, hello, darling. Great to see you.
Oh, I just got the notification for tonight's stream, so at least YouTube's a little bit closer on top.
All right.
Wow, look at YouTube being on the spot. Yay, go clap for them. Oh, jeez.
Okay, so does anybody have anything to say about this first scene, the third scene with Billy and Dee? Does anybody in the chat have anything they want to say about this scene? Does anything stand out other than that little mistake of like the difference between 48 hours and a fortnight? Anything else?
Yeah. Were they actually like if in the fleet for 2 weeks not talking to each other before that jump in the last?
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I want to say that it does not matter. Candice McClure is awesome. Hail to my future ex-wife. She looked beautiful in that scene. Thank you.
Yeah, she's a beautiful girl.
Yeah, she is a very pretty lady. I thought it was good interaction. I always liked at first when on the very first watch through that I had on actual broadcasted watch through, I liked the dynamic between Billy and Duwala because I thought that they made more sense, even more so than later on.
Well, they're both innocent and cute,
Yeah, I thought they made, they had a good dynamic. I always thought that they played off one another well. So
really, I think that if they wanted to, they could have made Dee get Apollo.
Well, yes, but
I like when I'm rationalizing this in my mind, this man choice. I think that SD offers up the best intellectual way for me to deal with it. Slim pickings, baby, slim pickings. If it's a lottery, yeah, Billy's got to win that lottery, I think.
Oh man.
Yeah, he's got height. Like that's the one thing.
Yeah, like he's tall and not diseased and fairly
youthful
looking genes, so that might
I think it honestly too, right? I think it plays to who Duwala is. She's kind of a very innocent character, and so she's attracted to that like attracts like in his personality. Yeah. But as she evolves, as she grows, as she gets older and goes through all of this hectic life that they're going through, she matures. Then she starts going after the more, I guess, masculine men.
Yeah.
You, script doctor, you want to read our Boxy Theory?
Maharishi Boxy say, if it smells like shit, it must be Boomer. That chick be nasty. Don't be a tie.
Nice. Oh gosh, man, Adega. All right.
Adega makes a pretty good point there, buried point, and you can tell how well he knows this series because we do take a far different tonal experience where Boomer is concerned. You notice that there is a sharp turn on how we're supposed to view her. So that was a very insightful, juicy little Boxy Theory.
Raquel, by the way, darling, you're going to have to take the lead for a moment because I have to step away, guys. I have to actually
Go get laid again.
Did she?
No, nothing like that. I actually have to go tend
Was
to
there an
mom.
earthquake?
No, I have to tend to mom and make sure that she gets her night meds and everything.
Tell your mom we
Okay.
said hi.
Yeah, love to your mom.
So I will be back within 10, 12 minutes. So just go ahead.
We'll move through. Okay, so then we progress. If you guys want to move forward, then we progress to this this rapid scene changing that we become accustomed to with Battlestar Galactica. So we cut to the old man on the operating table. He's still unconscious, and Ty is standing vigil. And suddenly there's a power failure. We cut to the hangar deck, and there are multiple high fives amongst the pilots. Then we cut to Gata explaining to Ty on the horn that the outages are a result of a Cylon virus. Of course, this was accomplished in the breach of the firewall during the corrective fleet jump. Then we cut to the hangar deck as emergency power kicks in, and Apollo tames the egos. He says, "Okay, everybody, just relax. There's something else brewing here. Everybody, calm down. Stop high-fiving each other." Mm-hmm. And then we cut to Gata and Ty, and there is a massive bang that startles everyone. Then we cut to Lee telling the crew to secure the birds on the deck. Then we cut to Kelly announcing that Galactica has been boarded. So I'm just going to pause here and just ask you guys if you want to say anything.
It was a good hectic round of things going on because you had the emergency power go back up after the power went out, and then that goes back down. And I liked Apollo. You know, as soon as he immediately goes from celebratory to a serious commander, you know, his training kicks in, and so he immediately orders that all the ordnance be locked up. Okay, something's going on, lock everything down. Yeah, and I liked that. Yeah, that's about what I have to say. Yeah,
how about you, SD?
Well, I think that this is a great set of sequences to establish the context of the problem for the episode. Yeah. We actually see the result of them not going to the the drop ship that the Cylons crashed into one of the pods, and as a result, the Cylons have invaded, and we're now seeing the repercussions of that. So the first thing that Gata tells us is that this power outage is part of the hack. So we can fix it, but it's going to take a few hours. So we know that we have that as a ticking clock, meaning that the systems are corruptible for the next couple of hours. So that's pretty cool. But then they build on top of that by revealing that, the Galactica crew now knows that there are Cylon Centurions aboard. Yep. And so their ticking clock becomes completely useless now. It's now just a game of survival and how can they do this. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that, to your point, Stephen, is that Lee Adama is the one that's like, okay, we got to lock stuff down. We got to figure out what's going on. No time to celebrate. You know, shit's hitting the fan because stuff is not acting as it should. Yeah. And this is even before Ty gets back to the CIC. So now it's just Gata and the new captain trying to sort of control things and get things figured out until we come back after the act break.
Yeah. So right after this, we cut to Lee and the Nuggets in a dark corridor with flashlights. They are confronted by the nearly indestructible Centurion. One Nugget immediately gets gutted by the Centurion, and the rest of them book it down the hallway, and the Centurion pursues them. And I think this is really starting to get into this sort of horror movie aspect that Drew was talking about. The camera angle of being pursued and you're hoping that nobody falls down. And and this is that Halloween-esque atmosphere that I think he spoke to earlier in the broadcast. Any feedback, guys?
You know, like I said earlier, I enjoy that we're getting to see the terror that these Centurions can bring. We don't really get too much of that earlier in the seasons. I mean, in the miniseries, and you know, there are scenes on Silent Occupied Capra, but you don't see just how powerful one Centurion can be, how destructive it can be when compared to a flesh and blood combatant, and how easily he guts that Nugget and just scares the bejesus out of everybody.
Yeah.
It's a real danger and threat that they're trying to set in. I think the writers in this specific episode is that not only is the threat out there in space hunting you down, but if it comes to hand-to-hand combat, humans are completely outgunned. There's no chance in hand-to-hand combat, and even in some cases, as the episode goes further with firearms, only certain firearms really do any damage to these things.
Yeah,
and this is the first time we're seeing the Centurion that's not trying to manipulate a human on Caprica too for this series. Like everything that's been happening on Caprica with Hilo has been orchestrated to their benefit, for the most part, until Sharon turns and they start running away. So now we're getting basically an unhindered Centurion aboard Galactica, just doing raging war and havoc.
Yeah,
right.
The relentlessness of the mechanization, I that also had a lot of gravity with me. I felt that was hot in my mind at that time, but also something stood out to me as somebody from communications and technology, and that is just how delicate and accurate the hands are on the Centurions. And the first time that I watched Battlestar Galactica, that didn't stand out to me the way that it stood out to me this time, where it's almost like it's a claw. And then you're thinking to yourself, wow, you were designed to do delicate, intricate, detailed work. And yet here you are using that to gut a nugget.
Wow.
And, when you look down at its mitts, at its claws, you're just thinking, wow, And so I was pretty struck by that. And then, of course, right after that, it cuts to black and we have the opening credits. So like Stephen was saying earlier, it creates so much suspense and worry, like Drew said, almost to the point where it feels like you're watching a horror movie, and it can be quite scary, and it can have a Halloween atmosphere.
Those claws are creepy as heck, and they're very good for intricate stuff. But if you notice, they don't have kind of like how our fingertip has a tip in order for us to do proper grips. And when you're dealing with claws that are like pointed edge and sort of filed off like that, it's really mostly for like circuit bridging or like soldering or what have you, those types of tools. So you can realize that at this point, those claws aren't going to have the ability to really handle things as easily as a human hand. And that's why I guess they also have the organic models to do something a bit more macro in essence. But what I also really like is that the Cylon Centurions don't hold weapons. Their arms are the weapons, so those claws retract, and that reveals their armaments. Yeah. And that's how they use their aiming and whatnot. And it's actually quite fascinating because the original Battlestar series, the Cylons don't have weapons of that nature. They use guns. They have the intricate fingers and the things and the stuff for grips, because just think of it as like the claw machine game that used to be in like play centers and bowling alleys and whatnot. Yeah. They don't always grab what you want because they're not always that delicate. But if you're to use that same claw to sort of bridge circuits and whatnot, it's incredibly accurate because it can get so fine in details, and you can like etch in what you need to do and bridge a single circuit specifically amongst millions without bleeding it over like our chubby fingers would normally do.
But also we're dealing with technology that integrates organics. So, I mean, the idea of a scalpel working on some kind of organic technology is something that I would see those claws also doing. So not only trying to weld circuitry, but also to do surgical precision within the organic components of these ships and so forth. So, I mean, just the idea of that also ripping apart. It's like a handful of scalpels just ripping through a flesh bag.
What's interesting is how they don't do it.
Oh, sorry. You get into this idea too that there's like a daemon-like quality, almost like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, where Walter Frankenstein realizes he has this moment of reckoning with himself, of what he has wrought, what he has created. And for me, I think that moment is here, that where you feel that human beings created these machines, and then these machines didn't quite turn out to do and be the thing that they wanted, that human beings wanted. And now we have a daemon on our hands. We have something that was supposed to be delicate and refined and subservient, and now it's a clawing, gutting, eviscerating weapon. And it's just you're struck by our command and our feebleness when it comes to technology and the things we create.
Absolutely.
But here's the other thing that's also really brilliant about it is the savage nature with which the Cylon took out that nugget. It wasn't surgical. It was emotional and violent. I mean, you would think a robot would be, efficient and surgical and direct, but not in this case. And that's where you see like the flaw to like Cylon programming is that they've succumbed to the emotions that they, I guess, generated for themselves for their organics that have also bled into their Centurions. Because a Cylon would the most efficient thing would be just a bullet to the skull, but he doesn't do that. He slashes at him. Yeah, and it's like that's foreign to an artificial machine that has to reserve its energy and movement to accomplish a specific goal.
It's not the kill zone, is it, SD? It's not the kill zone. The kill zone is the head. The kill zone is the heart. But going right for the guts of a creature is emotional and it's emotional.
It will kill the creature, but it makes it painful. Like it's inflicting suffering.
Yeah,
and that's the thing that I relish in that part of the scene.
And I think that's something that reaches back to like the unknown history of what's going on here. Something that it maybe allude to information you get in the future, because this artificial intelligence is angry. They are really angry at humans. There was some kind of a betrayal or a jealousy or something that created emotion within an artificial intelligence to be that brutal to an organic life form. Yeah. There's two comments in the chat I really wanted to get to, if that's okay, guys.
Yes, please take the floor.
Palanuki says that. Was it Palanuki? I'm sorry, I may have lost it. In the original series, yes, in the original series, it always made me laugh. The Centurions had to be 3 to pilot a shuttle. And maybe that was just the amount of seats that they had for those crafts. I mean, we're all talking about a different timeline, and we're talking about a different era of creation. And that one, I'm amazed that the medical technology in the series appears to be behind everything else. Or am I alone here? No.
I think the hardware's behind, but the chemicals are more advanced. I don't know of any chemical.
I also think that it could be to punctuate the fragility of humankind.
Yes.
That's of course a reoccurring theme throughout the series and through the intellectual property proper. So we are meant to have these moments where we realize our own fragility, and so that medical technology might be reflective of that. Maybe a little too convenient if it's noticeable to viewers, but I don't think that it was done with by accident or without consequences.
Yes.
I think
eloquently said. That's exactly what I was going to say, with the addition of also giving some kind of relatability to the viewer.
Yeah, because I don't know of any chemical in current human technology where you could inject it into a lung that's filling up with fluid, and then all of a sudden the fluid just dissipates. I don't know that. Like, I know you have to drain it, but that's what they had it on the Cobalt. Like, they have that chemical that would allow a person whose lungs are filling up with fluid to breathe again. I think the physical technology, the hardware, the sensoring stuff, that's probably behind, but I think they focus more on chemistry and chemicals in order to get a lot of the stuff that they to resolve ailments. So I think it's basically where it's conversely for us, we do a lot more physical and a lot more magnetic imaging and all that other stuff, as opposed to, and we do a lot of drugs, but there's a lot more imaging technology in our medical sciences as opposed to the chemical. And it seems like Galactica went on the reverse in that sense.
Well, also going back to the fragility of humans, as Raquel was saying, I mean, look at the damage that one Centurion did in the 1v1 combat. And you also look at, speaking to the medical technology, the fact that the president is dying of cancer, and they have basically the same treatments that we have. This is a spacefaring race that has mapped star systems and has colonized planets, and they're still dealing with cancer in basically the same way that we have.
However, I think that would have changed if Ottawa discovered that viral therapy thing in 2002 as opposed to 2007. But yeah, to the point, like, that's absolutely a brilliant comparison to seeing how fragile we are, and also how this species prioritize what technologies this species prioritized over others in order for the longevity of their race.
Well, again, if you take this,
they prioritize artificial intelligence and space travel, but they didn't prioritize like health.
Right.
Well, that's within the text, but outside of the text, one must admit that when faced with this superior technology, these automatons that are coming after human beings, it wouldn't be quite as fun if the authors were to ignore or not punctuate the fragility of humankind. And we had a scenario like the Orville, where Scott Grimes' character has his leg chopped off, and he's simply like a starfish. They just grow it right back. There wouldn't be any sense of risk or fear, or there would be no magic. The magic would be gone.
It would limit the risk to the point of something far more life-threatening than the mere loss of a limb, or life-altering than the mere loss of the limb. Yeah, absolutely.
This wasn't a show where it was like Star Trek, where you could have the magic bullet of technology to bail you out, and that was the beauty of the show, because there were limitations, and that was used as an obstacle, and it was a good obstacle, because there's definitely limitations to the equipment and everything else, because they're stuck behind the 8-ball on an old ship set to be decommissioned. Obviously, the equipment they have aboard, some of it is rather old, and by current standards, especially when you see later on in the season, compared against some of the other newer equipment.
Battlestar Pegasus.
Yeah, you can see the stark contrast in the fact of, wow, people had to survive on just this, and it's pretty amazing. And a magic bullet like Star Trek has with their medical technology would have never flown in this show.
Yeah, but that was man versus man, and this is man versus machine.
Right.
So you have to punctuate that human fragility, both emotional fragility and physical fragility. I think it is essential to the storytelling here.
But I also love the fact that they're integrating the emotional fragility into the machines as well, but it's just not as superficial, or it's not as surface level as what we expect.
Yes.
Who wants to read the Boxy Theory?
Stephen?
Okay. Boxy Theory update. Tidy Whitey Bandit spotted on deck 4 aft. Evidence is on its way to CIC. We have unconfirmed report that the hallway tagged, "I am Caprica 6, and I'm the only one still standing."
Oh man, I step away from the chat to take care of stuff, boy, and everybody loves to pick on me while I'm gone.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Great. An hour later.
Oh, Parrot Head. I love it. All right. Man.
Oh wow. Okay. We got one more. Boxy Theory update. Colonial Security on the trail of new suspect. Drunk blonde female, 5'9", walking bow-legged, seen leaving the corridor at the time of the tagging. Disregard previous update.
Yeah, that's that was Drew's afternoon. In a nutshell, that was Drew's afternoon.
Oh, puns.
Although he was humming when he left.
Oh, all right. Adega said I missed his. Oh, okay. Here you go, script doctor.
Maharishi Boxy say, "Don't drop soap near Gata. The freak runs deep in those waters. Don't be a tie."
God. Jesus.
Okay, so should we move past the opening credits, guys? I think
Wow, 38 minutes.
All right, so we cut to black, and then we run the opening credits, and then we return to this chaotic, almost Halloween pursuit, like Drew said. Lee stops to confront the Centurion. As the toaster leans in for the kill, its head explodes. A team behind him has shot it. The two teams debrief about being boarded. Lee sends word through a team member, a single runner, and Gata announces officially, publicly, that they've been boarded by a Cylon raiding party. Any comments here?
Yeah, I mean, I love that whole sequence. I thought that was awesome. He runs into the Marine fire team. They they save his ass at the last moment when Lee's all but thinking, "Oh shit, I'm screwed," and I thought it was awesome. And then they bring out an interesting thing, and I don't know if this kind of jumps the continuity chart. I want to ask Script Doctor about this because I don't know, like all of a sudden they need explosive rounds to take out Centurions, and I wondered, Script Doctor, does that make sense to you?
Well, it makes sense to me in the manner that the Centurion should be fairly durable to normal armaments, but it just makes me question: was the armaments that Hilo had in the first season of Battlestar explosive rounds? And if so, the other thing that I find kind of interesting is that these explosive rounds appear to be one load, one shoot, where Hilo's was multiple, like it was like in a magazine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't get what's going on here. Like maybe is there a third tier, like an in-between tier of ammunition that we're not being told about? That maybe Hilo had that is standard for a Raptor going into a heavy mission, but not maybe something that's standard for your normal combatants on the ship.
I wonder if it was like, they had armor-piercing rounds or something, and that was what they had,
I think it was just a change I think they were changing it because, like, there's a lot of forethought that goes into this show, but I mean, everybody makes mistakes, everybody makes changes as you go along, and I think that was one of the minor changes that they were making to set up future scenes, and set up future engagements, and so that's the way that I took it.
Yeah, they may have realized or not expected to have Cylons actually be on board a ship, and it'd always be like just through space combat, and then they came up with this brilliant idea to have an enclosed, suspenseful invasion, and then they realized, oh yeah, if we can just kill them with one clean shot to the head with no more rounds, they're not really any more of a threat than other humans, so we need to up the stakes a little bit. Or maybe, I don't know how, but maybe they upgraded the Centurions based on the data from Hilo blowing them up.
And that was my reading of it the first time that I watched the show, and the second time that I watched the show, and this time is, I just my mind automatically went to a place where I thought, well, of course, if they're going to be able to get to like near synth, where they look almost 100% human, or they are 100% human, of course they're not going to leave the rest of their people behind. Of course, there are going to be advancements. So when they get boarded with this party, I always thought of this party as like the super Centurions, the ones who are updated, the ones that are developing, because this is clearly a race that is obsessed with advancement, obsessed with moving itself forward to become more and more powerful. They want to do a genocide, and at the same time also become, I don't know, they have a Pinocchio complex. They want to become human. So I always thought of it that way. Oh, that's just a natural thing that I should accept within the story, because of course these people wouldn't leave their other people behind. They would be updating and upgrading everyone as far as physically possible without destroying the unit.
Ideally, yeah, that would be the case. However, I don't think Battlestar went to the effort to showcase that outside of just the normal biological aspect of it.
Yeah, agreed.
Hail Orville Nation.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, PJ.
Hey, PJ. Great to see PJ in the chat. All right.
I have another point. I'm on that point, if that's okay.
Sure.
Go for it.
Two things. One, the unnecessary amount of blood on their faces.
Yes.
Don't know how that happened, but they all have blood.
Well,
blood
I think
and eyes, and like a pressure explosion of some kind, maybe. I don't know.
I think that, Stephen, when the Centurion exploded, it has like entrails inside it, like the Raider does.
Okay,
and
all right.
I think that's what that was from.
I mean, that's a horrifying concept to think, eh?
Can I ask an honest question of the panel? May I please ask when this originally aired? Because everybody keeps talking about all of these Halloween aspects. Was this sort of seasoned or flavored with Halloween due to its original release date? Because Drew's now mentioned it, and now Steven's mentioned that it's a little bit more gory and bloody and splattery than usual. And Drew's mentioning this Halloween chase aspect with the camera angles and the pursuits. Does anybody have any information on that? Is this
It aired on July 22nd, 2005.
Okay, all right. So it's not to sate the Halloween appetite. Okay.
But you know what's funny about it is like this is one of those things when I look for fun stuff to watch during October, during the Halloween season. It's funny. I actually always watch this episode because it does have that feel to it. Yeah, it does have a little, some tinges of horror in it, and I like it. It is kind of like that in a way. So I don't know if it was intentional by them to kind of do that, but I think it's brilliant. It holds up as Halloween fare when you're during the month of October and you want to watch something kind of suspenseful and cool. You throw this episode on.
Yeah, but Stephen is right. There was excessive splatter.
Yes,
yes. It was a Pollock. It was a Jackson Pollock.
Or what's the other one? An Adrian Hurst or something?
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to ask the panel, honestly. All right, Apollo sent Hot Dog to the CIC and kept Cat with him. Do you think that was because Hot Dog was a man that he sent him out there to run to the CIC through the situation, or do you think that he just thinks Cat is tougher to have at his side?
No, I mean,
well, maybe it's also to protect Cat too, because she's still kind of a newer person.
She's a nugget, so it's Hot Dog.
Yeah. Back at this time, they were recruits. Hot Dog had already excelled as as
I like Cat. That's why I'm asking.
I like Cat too, but I don't think her real qualities as a soldier and as a pilot showed. They were starting to show. But Hot Dog was more advanced at this point because he had already shown, he
was the first nugget out there that took out a Raider.
He showed calm under pressure. And
I think was an opportunity to give the other, I guess, of a new recruit a little bit more screen time so that we can get to know their character also. Because we've already seen quite a bit of Hot Dog at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what I think that it was as well, Stephen. What SD said, and also because just experience-wise, Hot Dog had the most experience out of any of the new nuggets in the squadron.
It's quite an interesting thing to bring up, though, because this is an issue that we face in the world today, and people have to make split decisions. And you can have a pilot who is a female, and she may be absolutely amazing, and maybe she is 100 pounds soaking wet. She doesn't break a buck, and she's 5'3". And when you're sending somebody off to go and face off with a super Centurion, that might factor into your mind. And I'm not sure that it's sexist to say that, more that it's just interesting that as human beings, we have to face that. If your house is burning down, do you want a woman who's 5'3" and doesn't break a buck dragging you out of the fire? Or do you want a hulking lumberjack 6'5" man who can bench press a Pinto coming in and knocking down the door and dragging you out? Stephen raises a very, very cool and very realistic point about where our minds go when we think about danger, when we think about ability, and when we face things that are terrifying. Who do you send to the front line?
That is exactly what I was thinking.
That's also a brilliant thing to think. Like, what's the strategic advantage? Like, say Hot Dog can run faster and he can take care of himself more, but you still need someone that's also a good shot. So why would you send a smaller person out on own where they probably won't even be able to use any of the skills they have, when you could keep them close by and then take full advantage of them because they have a support system that they can contribute to?
Right. Yes. And so I think it's incredibly interesting that he would read in the text so beautifully like that, because what he's doing is showing a higher intelligence, that a deep seated empathy, where you sort of ask yourself, what would I do if I were in command? Would I actually do that? Who would I send? Who do you send against this clawing, psychotic automaton that will just eviscerate you? It's just it would factor in. If you're human, it would factor in, and I think that was a lovely point to raise, Stephen.
Yeah.
Also, if I ever meet someone that can bench press a Ford Pinto without that Pinto exploding, I'm very impressed.
right?
You don't want to hit it from behind, Esty. Yeah. Anyway, cool. So, do you guys want to move on to the next cut?
Oh, hold
Oh,
on.
Boxy Theories. Go ahead.
Okay, so Boxy Theory update. Hallway on deck 3 found tagged. The same blonde spotted leaving the scene. Rumors are the raid states, "I will have my revenge on man. I have been scorned. Blame Drew." Hashtag.
Yeah.
More to come.
Drew's fault. If he wasn't off having afternoon delight, those Centurions never would have boarded.
A mad stupper.
The mad stuffer indeed, yeah.
Toxic Man Flu asked a good question for the panel here, and I want to put this up before we move on because I think this is kind of fascinating. He said, "I wonder if drones would have been something humans would have turned to, like remote controlled ones. They do put a lot of precious life in danger."
If it was for a function of war, I could see eventually some societies becoming reliant on that because you take away the consequence. But at the same time, when you take away the consequence of war, then everything can become battle, and then you just don't know what you're really fighting for. And that's also something that was addressed in a Star Trek episode where you had the two planets at war with each other, and they used a computer simulation to take out their lives and force people to self-sacrifice themselves because the war didn't have a meaning since so much of it was removed.
Mm-hmm.
Great point, SD. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that in this. I see that in this show as well. Is this filament of consequence?
Yeah.
You know, it's that there are always going to be consequences. So yeah, definitely. I think that that it would have been a lot less interesting if they were to introduce some type of remote controlled drones.
And I think
when it's flesh and bone against the insane megalomaniac genocidal automaton, there's gravity there. There's something that human beings can relate to and that they want to read and that they want to watch and that they'll get invested in. But just to see it as drones fighting these automatons, I think it would be far less interesting.
yeah, and
It's like clones versus robots.
And see here, and see, here's another thing I wanted to bring up on that end. You know, of what Toxic's point was, you know, had they used drones, see, they were already paranoid of the Cylons hacking into, you know, their
they don't even network their computers.
Drones have by default, you know, a fairly good amount of circuitry, electronics, things of that nature.
Well, they're governed by a signal, right? So
You
the
know,
signal is their weakness.
So that would be another reason why they wouldn't employ those in battle, because they would be afraid of them being turned against them. So that's another big reason tactically you don't want to do that. If you have an enemy that can hack into systems, you're not going to employ that sort of countermeasure against them because it's very likely they could turn it against you in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you have hyper mechanization, when you're going to fight that hyper mechanization, that hyper technology, of course, you turn into a Luddite. You throw your sandals into the mechanization to stop it. You become the opposite of that. You want to get away from that. Imagine if what a great point, Drew. Imagine if the Cylons were able to grab hold of some sort of algorithm to command those drones and just wipe out everyone.
Yeah, and we're already dealing with the Cylon virus, you know, the fallout of a Cylon virus in the episode. So that
well, not only that, what do you think the organics are? It's them being basically just kind of hacking the signal of human interaction and manipulating those people around them. I mean, that's what you do with war, is that if you find out the frequency that your enemy is taking orders from, you then hack the frequency and in their own language tell them to do something that's counterproductive to what they want, but you give it to them in the form of an order so that you gain an advantage. And that's what Angel 6 is doing with Gaius Baltar. That's what Boomer's presence is among the crew, is to usurp and distrust and create paranoia. And it's very methodical. I love watching it. It's great drama.
Yeah. All right. Read that script, Doctor.
Adega Outlaw, thank you. Maharishi Boxy say, never make a Galen Tyrol mad. He know how to insert power tools. Don't be a tie.
Oh boy.
Toxic man flip. Can you put that up, Drew? No.
Oh God, man, you guys.
Drew, so
Oh boy.
tired of being admired.
Nice.
Tired of love uninspired. Drew, so let's face it, everything below the waist is an earthquake. Sorry, that's what Blazing Saddle people out there.
Oh man, man.
When you have to teach a woman how to walk again, go seek Drew.
Oh God, I'm over here. I'm as red as my hat right now. I'm glad
You
I'm
brought this on to yourself by advertising.
Yes, that is true, SD. That is true.
All right, so back on topic.
All right,
Drew.
Next cut. So Billy and the president with a guard are in the dark in the jail. The president asks to be let out when they hear this sustained hail of gunfire, and the guard refuses, just momentarily, because then of course he relents. The door the door where they are begins to open. It's tense, but it's just Lee and his team. Lee tells the president they've been boarded and the Centurions are after the magazines. Lee sends them to sickbay, sends them, get to sickbay, go and hide out. That's the place where we're supposed to hide. Basically the muster point on the ship. Lee arms Billy and the president refuses a firearm. Lee heads towards the Cylons.
Well, this is a great argument she has, which is that she doesn't want to die in a cage.
I love that. When she
and I
spoke
like the
up.
fact that it appeals to the compassion of the guard as well, who's like, you know what? Yeah, you probably are going to die if we're hearing this, so might as well have you not behind bars.
Yeah.
So at least you can die with a little bit more humanity.
Yeah.
And
that banging is really crazy too, SD, because you're not just hearing that hail of gunfire. You're also hearing that banging as though there are the drums of war or the drums of murder. Their feet, the Cylons' feet, banging on the decks, and so you got the hail of gunfire with the drums of murder or drums of war, and it's pretty intense. Imagine being in a cage for that.
My Mary McConnell thumbnail is gone. I don't know where it went, but I just wanted to say Mary McConnell's acting chops in that scene, showing strength while being calm. Like, I mean, you could tell there was tension there, but the way that she worded it, the way that she approached the guard, the power, just the power of her voice. I loved her in that scene. Just wanted to say that.
Yep. Drew?
Yes.
Any comments on this scene, or should we go to the next cut?
Well, the other thing that happens is they set up a position of a goal for the crews is get to the medical bay.
Right. And that's what it reminds me of a game mission. That scene of anything reminds me this would be a mission in a video game.
Yeah, that I know. Wasn't that neat, dude? I thought that
that's also part of screenwriting too, is make your goal simple that everyone who's watching can understand, and so that whenever you put in between that goal, it's always in the back of the audience's minds, like, yeah, they got to get to the medical bay. So it doesn't matter that the story is detracting, as long as the characters are still trying to get to that goal, and if that goal has been clearly established, we will follow them to the ends of the earth until they do that. And as a result, it's up to the writer and the creative to ensure that by the end of the story, the heroes either get to the goal or die trying.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to welcome Chef Zilla. I see him in the chat. I also see my buddy Wes Moody Webcast.
Hey, Wes.
So, and also Ramblin' Canuck, who recently had a birthday. Happy birthday again, Ramblin' Canuck.
Happy birthday.
Good to see you. So yeah, we've got the chat is cooking tonight. I love it. People still joining in, and that's awesome. I appreciate the support, guys. Thank you so much. All right. So let's move on to the next segment, shall we?
Okay, so then we cut to Caprica. Starbuck and Hilo are walking in an abandoned street. Starbuck has the arrow. Starbuck and Hilo discuss the genocide, the Holocaust that has happened to their people. Starbuck won't let Hilo off the hook about Sharon. Starbuck helps him to come to grips with what has happened. She sort of does this by being mean and teasing him simultaneously and sort of driving it home to him that he shouldn't be wrestling with these ideas. He needs to see that he's been used. And Kara announces that she has to make a pit stop.
Yeah, and one thing that they mentioned, there's a couple things they mentioned in this scene. One of them, kind of important, if you've missed it before or didn't understand it before, Hilo reiterates when Kara asks him about the bodies. Apparently, the Cylons gathered up all these bodies and put them into mass incinerators.
Yeah.
That would have been a hell of a project to undertake.
Yeah.
But also the way that Kara treats him. He's got this conflict in him he's had since he found out that Sharon was a Cylon, and then accepted the fact that she was pregnant, and then she ran off again. Now she's with Thrace, and now he's trying to resolve the fact that he misses her, and he does love her, and he's also angry that she's run, and there's all the confusion that's going through the character of Hilo. This is a character, basically, that has been on his own since the beginning of season 1, on his own, and has had his own storyline, and he has carried it. I really enjoy what the writers did with him, and the actor's strength to perform this task of basically carrying the B plot for over a season now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this would be more like, I guess, a C plot, because I think Guy's Baltar is more B.
Okay.
And the fact that we only get really one instance an episode on average of Hilo is a little downplayed, even though I really wish we could get more time on that planet with him trying to survive and a battle of wits between him and the Cylons, because I think that would be kind of thrilling, but sadly they don't do that for us. But when we do get to see him and he's able to now interact with Kara again, like a real human, so to speak, it's kind of nice how the approach is far different, where Kara's more casual and relaxed, and when he was with Sharon, it was more like go, go, go. So it's a nice little change of pace for him. And I like how those two contrast. And also the little bit of exploration we get into Kara's backstory.
Well, I think the change of pace with him also has to do with, not only the familiarity, the difference isn't the familiarity that he has. Though Kara was his friend, and he had a crush on Sharon. So there's that difference. But also he's dealing with all of this stress. He's going through all of this thought process of everything that he's just gone through. I mean, you're stuck on a planet that's basically been dead because a genocide has happened to your people, and then he's been dealing with Sharon and building that love while running, and then everything that I said before. So he needs this time. He's stressed. He needs some kind of downtime, and I think that actually being with one of his best friends is helping to do that.
Yeah, and I think I liked what you said earlier about his isolation too, because it's not reading into it too much to realize that when somebody is isolated and they're only exposed to one person or one situation, that becomes the new normal. So when Kara comes along and gives him a good slap in the face, intellectually and emotionally, she sort of wakes him up to his humanity. I mean, here he has been isolated with only this Boomer issue, only this Sharon issue to deal with. And now all of a sudden, he's reconnecting with another human being who's saying, hey, look at what's happened to us. And I like that she says to him, you feel a fool. They made a fool of all of us. They wiped out our people. That's their job. In the end, she says something to the effect of, in the end, they'll make a fools out of everyone. That's what they do.
Hail to Brian, the Gravedigger. We miss you, brother. Can't wait for you to come back. Good to see you.
Where is he?
He's in
the chat.
Brian!
Teasing us.
Brian, you need to come back, man, when you can. We miss you.
Yes, please.
It's like Parrothead is asking why I stole Wes's duck, which apparently the StreamYard duck is it's missing.
Oh no.
Oh God. So we also have, I think, in between here. Here, go ahead, script doctor.
Maharishi Boxy say, air vents are not hiding booze. Think about Ty's eye. Don't be a Ty.
Nice. All right. So So after the exchange between Kara and Hilo, it looks like they're getting to a familiar area, and so what happens is Starbuck says, "I got something I got to pick up." You see them walk into the structure, and it looks like possibly a place where Starbuck lived, and then of course we cut back to the Galactica in the CIC, and they're trying to figure out now where exactly, what is the motivation for the Cylons? Where's this boarding party headed?
Yeah.
And what happens is, as they're trying to speculate, Ty steps in and said, "I've seen this before. I know what's going to happen." And now that I've seen this series multiple playthroughs, I'm almost wondering if there wasn't a little bit of foreshadow at play here, because there's a few moments where there's some foreshadowing with Ty, and of course, something major near the back half of the show, when we get into the later seasons. But for now, oh man, this seems like a whole lot of foreshadowing, because he's right on it. Like, Ty knows the Cylon strategy.
He really shows leadership qualities in that scene. This is one of the things I like about the episode is you find out that he's not inept.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is, Steven, is why did he know that Cylon strategy by heart? That's the thing.
Well, he said he's seen it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
So that's what he's going off of experience as opposed to prediction. He's not predicting it. He's saying, I've seen this before. This is what they're going to do. And he also draws a path from the motivation to the result, saying exactly like, this is what's going to happen if this section is compromised and then this section is compromised, because those are our vital points internally. He lays it all out as a very logical approach to disabling the ship. Now, while it might be foreshadowing, the other thing you have to keep in mind is that I'm pretty sure in the writer's room, they had no concrete decision of who's going to be what at this point. So they decided, well, let's play around with the doubt for fun for the audience so that they can speculate. And then when we feel which character can take advantage, we can at least say, yes, we've got an established point. We have a point in the past established that we can build off of to allow for that result to be held as true.
Well, we also have in the last episode, I'm starting to see a story evolve. The character is starting to evolve Ty, because of course in the last episode, he winds up facing the exact same situation that he chided the old man for. And he winds up making the same decision the old man did, which is to sacrifice the whole for the one. And so, and now we're in this episode, I think that we get all these nice little breadcrumbs where we're starting to see that Ty is a good leader in his own right. And I think they spend quite a bit of time with the camera on his face to be expressive of his contemplation of this growth that he's experiencing. Later on, of course, in the episode, he has that exchange with Lee. But I sort of feel like the last episode and this episode are showing us that Ty can grow. Ty has a lot of rabbits in his hat, and he knows a lot about leadership, and he's quite a good guy. Because, remember 2 episodes ago, he was a jerk who was giving Adama the gears, saying, "What are you doing? You're not going to risk the whole fleet for Kara. You're not going to risk the whole fleet." And then all of a sudden, he's risking the whole fleet for the old man. So I'm starting to see this as a play.
Well, it's his trial by fire, right? And he's slowly being forged into a leader that he should have been. But the thing is, like, we see that his flaw for decades has been that he's always been the support system for Adama. He's never been the person in command, so he's never had that test
and
of
the
mettle.
lush, which I think has added to it.
Yeah, obviously there's some incredibly intelligent writing going on here, because the treatment of PTSD and substance abuse and alcoholism is being treated wonderfully here. This is real. This is not, I dare say, like a Star Trek episode where you have Scotty who can drink 7
Weave it to shore leave
of whiskey, and then he's fine the next day. These are
he has to go see McCoy for that, actually.
well, no, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
When Deanna Troi is mind raped, the next episode she's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed like nothing happened. So in this we're seeing a much more adult treatment of the audience. We're seeing the consequences, and obviously they are very caring and very intelligent writers and creative people for the way that they have handled PTSD, child neglect, abuse, and of course alcoholism. So Stephen, I 100% agree with you. He's reckoning with his own guilt for having wasted his leadership role, wasted his life, and possibly harmed himself and his marriage and all of his relationships through alcohol abuse.
Well, that's the benefit of serialized storytelling over episodic, and they actually do that in Deep Space Nine when Miles O'Brien he has to have that lifetime in that cell, which is only a couple minutes in our time, and then that whole episode is him trying to recover, and it actually is something they refer to a few times later on in that series. Yeah. And that was this. I mean, that's what Deep Space Nine was, the experiment. Can we do Star Trek serialized as opposed to episodic? And the Next Generation, as much as it has its, I have a reverence for it. As I was saying on a stream just, I think it was yesterday, season 3 and 4 are the only ones that are really shine, and even 1 and 2 feel more like original Star Trek and approach to the topics. But once you start to getting into season 5 and 6 and 7, it's really just kind of laying groundwork for other shows and not really being a show of itself. And when it is, it's all a bottle episode, very much character internal conflict, very episodic and reset again. And that's why whenever I end up doing a watch of Star Trek Next Generation, I usually end up finding myself spending more time with those first 4 seasons as opposed to the back 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Brian the Gravedigger, contrary to popular belief, folks, he's not been digging graves. He's been doing construction, and hopefully he says he could get up to OKC and grab his
Oklahoma
soon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Brian, you could take care of you, get yourself stable, get yourself, where you need to be. When you come back, we're going to be here with open arms, man, because I miss your mind and your love of this show.
You are so wonderful to be with on the panel. You're so intelligent and you have so much to add, and we totally miss you, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's going to be awesome when Brian comes back, for sure.
Yes, please.
So here we had that one, and I think we got another Boxy Theory coming up here. Yeah, here we go. Script doctor.
Maharishi Boxy say, for good time, call Ellen and don't be a tie.
Yeah.
And then this one.
Maharishi Boxy say, old man wears thong, don't ask, painful memories, don't be a tie.
A song always leaves painful memories. So.
Oh, yeah. Parrot had asked, were you in the showers or his quarters, Mom? Oh, geez. Oh, man.
Let's move forward, shall we?
So we cut to Cobalt. Drew, did you want to do this one?
No, go ahead, Raquel.
Okay, so we're at the Raptor crash site, and Gaius is dreaming of Adama rescuing him. Adama asks what he's holding. Gaius says it's a child. Adama asks to hold the baby. Of course, this is a baby toaster. Adama, while holding the baby, repeats the phrase 6 uses, but now it feels like a prophecy. Is this the shape of things to come? Gaius responds, that's my understanding. Adama says, only one thing for it then. Adama takes the mechanical Messiah to the water, and although your instinct might be to expect a baptism, Adama holds the toaster Messiah under the water until it sinks, and then he walks out of the water heartlessly. Gaius chases after Adama, but trailing considerably. He tries to find the baby to no avail. Gaius violently wakes up in the lap of 6 in the forest. Gaius tells her of his dream. He asks why anyone would want to kill a baby. 6 answers by saying the answer is all around him, and Gaius sees human skulls lining the forest floor. 6 says the skulls are from ancient human sacrifice on Kobol. Clearly, 6 is trying to show the inhumanity of humans to punctuate the plight of the toasters. So we have this Moses, Jesus, deliverer prophecy with the baby, only of course it ends horribly. So 6 calls the scriptures a lie and says that humans are depraved. Again, we hear 6 say, this is all a reoccurring cycle because mankind's true nature always asserts itself. 6 creates a moral ultimatum for Gaius. Only he can stop humanity, the cycle, and of course, the killing of the baby. So here we're seeing these steps that are crucial to propaganda, psychological propaganda, which is to, if you want to weaponize someone, you first dehumanize the enemy. So it's quite clever, and Gaius has to then choose between his own people or helping 6. Comments?
And the interesting aspect of that is how
Got echo.
is how that what the image of Adama is doing is essentially what the Cylons have done to humanity. They have murdered them. They have sacrificed them out of fear, out of anger, out of the concern for the future. And 6's manipulation of Gaius by saying that the sacrifices of the old ways were wrong and evil, and what is her ulterior motive is to talk about a singular God. So she's trying to basically say that her God is right and their gods that they've had all this time that has allowed them to accomplish everything that they have reached at this point are wrong. And it's a brilliant form of manipulation and propaganda for against Gaius to get on her side. And he's so emotionally caught up with the trauma that he could not dare distance himself objectively to see what is being what is happening to him. And I think it's just brilliant, brilliant drama to observe.
Yeah, there are two things happening here, because we know that the Cylons are the babies of humanity. But then, of course, we have this pantheon of gods relenting to the monotheism that 6 is continually talking about. So we also are meant to see this child as a deliverer. And of course, we had Moses on the water in the basket, and we have the child that's swaddled. But instead, this deliverer is murdered. So yeah, I definitely see the two readings in this, and I don't think it's overreading it. I think that it's very apparent that this is what the writers want us to see, that the humans are willing to kill their own babies, which are the Cylons, their own creation. But at the same time, we have 6 moving this idea forward of forget about your pantheon of gods, humanize us, our monotheistic God, and this child is a blend of that, the Cylon and human, where this is the future.
That's also to add to a third point, which is the fact that in that dream, what Adama is doing is he's literally killing both children of humanity, because that's what the hybrid represents, is a melding of the two, right? So it's not just like tossing away and killing the toaster, as it were, and which is the first extension of the children of humanity, like the children of humanity as a whole, as opposed to the literal children of humanity. And the fact that the Cylons have managed to combine the physical with the legacy, so to speak. If I'm being a little bit too abstract here, but again, it's a very deep scene.
You're not being too abstract at all, and it's not overreading it. It is obvious that is what the authors are doing here, because of course the grand design of this show is the pantheon of gods and Greek mythology, the mythos, and then of course we have this monotheism, which is of course this grand design of out with the old, ancient, primitive ways of being, and onto futurism, onto the future, onto this new type of humanity. So
and they're doing it far closer together than what actually happened in our own human history, because I think it was about 200 years minimum between the actual changeover. So, but here they're just saying, no, we're racking this up to 11 speed.
Let's get her done.
Yeah, it's like we're doing this tomorrow.
My Marshall amp goes to 11. Let's put this on 11. Does this go to 11? Sorry, that's a Spinal Tap reference.
Yeah.
Give it.
But that's what essentially they're doing. They're just taking that progression, because the change, the fight, the genocide itself with regards to like of the following, took a very long time in our own history. And what they're using is they're taking those beats that we've had recorded, because thankfully, even though there was a change, the Romans were still very good record keepers. So we actually have the details to see it. And then this writing team decides to take that, give it a science fiction twist, and then expand upon the philosophy of our creation through technology and our reliance on it.
Yes.
And how it can like bite us back and create something new, and just giving this nice little, very accessible and relatable veneer over it, so that anyone can come in and pick it up, is just shows how much effort, and it's like a random act of brilliance or lightning in a bottle. It just works.
Yes. I can definitely tell that there were two writers, or there was somebody who was bouncing ideas, because there is so much texture and so many layers to this, that this was either multiple sittings, so writing and then going away, having a bath and a glass of wine, and coming back and adding that extra layer, or we were bouncing ideas off of somebody who knew a lot about classics and knew a lot about the Bible, and also knows a lot about futurism, perhaps read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, because we get that daemon aspect to it, and just created this beautiful multi-layered thought process, and then was able to bring it to life on screen, and it's fabulous.
Okay, you guys brought up every point that I was going to bring up and some. But again, the forethought that goes into everything that's done. They stuck to the outline, and you can tell that just with everything they did, especially in this episode, there's a lot of things that lead into all the way the final season, imagery and scenery. But the shape of things to come, reinforcing the dread of the eventual outcome, some of the drama that's going to happen in season 3 and season 4, just reinforcing the idea this has happened before and this will happen again. And just having Adama, drown this baby is really symbolic of what humanity is capable of, the direction, the extremism that humanity will take in order to protect itself as life when it comes down to it. But also, it's also one of the steps in reinforcing that idea that the show is going to go in this direction, and this is going to be the eventuality. And I really enjoyed that.
There's also one other aspect, and that is the fact that it's Adama alone making this decision. Mm-hmm. Where if you really want to sort of pontificate the idea that all humanity is evil, you would have them as a group around and celebrate and assist, because that's usually how it works. But right here, it's very intimate. It's one person, and it's to remind us that it's not the whole that's horrible to so-called human nature. It's the individual, right? And it's because the individual can actually do great damage to of things. They can manipulate others to get on their side. But what makes humanity the dominant species on this planet, at least for now, is the fact that we worked together. We did not let one person govern us through totalitarianism, and we didn't do it through the negative enforcement of tribalism. The tribalism is a byproduct of surviving against nature. And while tribes may have conflicted with each other, we have evidence through our existence that the tribes have actually formed alliances and integrated and mixed and grew and expanded. And that is far more human nature than the whole just because you have something I want, I'm going to kill you for it. That's antithetical to human nature, at least because of our existence and where we are now. And the fact that in this show they make it so that you can have that seed of doubt, because it's only one person of that rescue party that Gaius is seeing all around him, because he's seeing all the other his compatriots that were in the Raptor 1, as well as other crew members being helped by the supposed
It is interesting that they would take the most powerful entity,
exactly, yes,
the leader amongst them, and would isolate them. I never even considered it being a sort of like a communal biblical stoning. That's an interesting point. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, very interesting that the author didn't go in that direction, because as you're saying, it's very typical in writing to then sort of say, well, this is the Lord of the Flies. This is tribalism.
Yes.
Mob mentality takes over. Let's kill the baby toaster. Let's kill this abomination, this daemon, this half human, half toaster.
The mischievous fairy sort of thing, yeah.
Yes, and instead we see the leader of the military, the leader everyone respects go out and just do it without with no emotion.
With
Well,
no
he's the
emotion, no
savior.
regard, and also not the president. So it's not even of the people; it's of the protectors.
Right. He is
Yeah.
the savior of the fleet. He is the one they look to for leadership
Yeah.
and protection. So I know we're spending a long time on this section, but I just want to say I love this panel. I love this chat. And another thing is when we get later on in the show, probably season 4, this scene really does come back into play. You know, when you question, because Baltar mentions this is where the gods walked among men. And this is where this is where the humans sacrifice humans. This whole theme of what exactly happened on Kobol, you know. So yeah, that's it.
And it could also be a lie too, right?
And sacrifice.
Yeah,
this
right.
whole thing about sacrifice. This whole thing about the deliverer. This sort of Moses, Jesus. Cylons are the babies. Like this is an incredibly powerful scene. It's what makes this episode so good.
Yeah, what's also brilliant about it is that she could also be lying because she has no way to prove that those remains are of the sacrifice. And on top of that, I'm not an actual doctor, but I do know that it takes between 12 and 14 years for a body that's not embalmed to completely disintegrate. So there's no way those remains would be there in reality. So that those remains could also be an illusion done by Six as well in order for her to further prove her point.
Yeah.
Well, you know, as we know, you go ahead and you can read this real quick, Script Doctor.
Dig out Maharishi Boxy say Cylons can make toast. Just turn upside down and insert. Don't be a tie.
Oh boy.
Nice.
That's just creating mental images with tie and tie. It's altogether very nasty. You know?
All right. So, you know, my take on it, I got a little bit different take here. And it's something that I don't think anybody touched on. And this is the fact that, you know, if you pay attention to some of the things that Alosha said to Roslin earlier in a couple of the earlier episodes about Kobol, that this was a place that, you know, exacts a price in blood. You know, this is a place where, you know, people are going to see things. People are going to turn on each other. And, you know, due to the fact that we now understand that, you know, this was an angelic manifestation in Baltar's head, even though early on in these seasons we were meant to think that, you know, okay, it is aligned with the Cylons' goals. Well, that's not necessarily the case. And I think when you see Kobol, I think what you're seeing is, sure, while Baltar's being rather manipulated by Angel 6 here, he's starting to see the visions that Alosha was talking about, you know, where he's starting to see this. And this whole sequence that played out with the Dama drowning the baby, this was actually, in a weird way, a foreshadow in itself. It wasn't literal, but it was definitely metaphorical. Wow, you guys went quiet on me.
I'm just processing that.
Me too.
Yeah, because like I said, what I think is a lot of the stuff that he's seeing is, yeah, he's seeing the human remains there. He understands the savagery, but Baltar is now putting it together in his head his own way, and now he thinks that you know, it's furthering his path down the monotheistic side of thinking.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that Alosha had it partly right. This is a planet that make people like lose their shit.
Yeah. So you think that the planet has an effect on people's behavior?
Well, yeah, because she basically touched on the fact in so many words, told Roslin that it exacts a price in blood, meaning that, you know, it's not cursed, but it's cursed. You know what she's getting at. Mm-hmm. And
the curse is not from the planet, but from the humanity that eventually that did not leave with the rest of the species.
The humanity is the scourge. The humanity is the cursed. The behavior of
or the fallen of humanity, those that fell in humanity.
Yes, and human nature always reasserts itself or asserts itself. herself.
But she was right though that in a way the planet has a repeating cycle, and that cycle is going to repeat if anybody goes down to that planet. And she was spot on about it, because we're going to find that out here rather shortly. You see it foreshadowed in what the sequence we just saw, but as we get into next episode, definitely you'll start to see that. People are going to start to turn on each other. Things are going to get heated. And,
interesting. So it's got a sort of poisoned planet angle for you. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I will keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I always saw it that way, because especially like a couple episodes before this, when Aloysius is pointing out Cobalt to Rosalind, and she explains that that's absolutely what I was getting at.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
being in a poisoned area, or an area that would make you behave in a bizarre way, especially if you were occupied or controlled by the gods, is definitely something that would be possible in Greek mythology. So I will keep an eye out for that. I think that that's an interesting idea, because we do have ruins, and we do have sacrifice going on here. And with a sacrifice, there can be a poisoning of an area if things are done in a way that doesn't appease the gods. There's a reckoning. There's punishment. So I will keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, it also reminds me, because it can poison the human spirit, but it also reminds me of something I heard Peter Weller say many, many years ago, which is that there's a village somewhere in Italy that he speculates that all humanity is drawn to, and that's because they ended up finding that possibly that's where humanity sort of evolved at its most basic things before they traveled to Africa and then made their second tier of evolution, so to speak. And it's just showing we're drawn to our home, but we're also negatively impacted by whatever we've done in an area that's so traumatic to us as a whole, that it can have be part of an echo in our DNA. Yes. So that when we walk inside of it, it gives us the chills.
Yes.
But in the other fact, if you can find to the point where we originated, it makes us feel like we're safe and at home. And I think that's a really cool idea that I was not thinking about here when we were talking about the fact that Cobalt could be maybe the second tier. Not maybe humanity did not evolve on this, but we went there and did horrific things that it becomes a nightmare to our soul.
Mm-hmm. Or that poisoning, where anyone that goes near it has that poisoning, exactly like you said, an eerie feeling, like when you're in a place where you shouldn't be, because terrible things have happened there, like Pompeii or Auschwitz or Birkenau.
Mm-hmm.
Loki says, man is destined to destroy itself. To the colonials, the gods created man. Man created Cylons. Drew slept with a Cylon. Drew broke a Cylon. Cylons destroy man. Hashtag beware of the Drew.
Seems
where is Loki's last one? Loki had a really funny one, and it's gone.
Oh, man.
Loki, a final Boxy Theory. Blonde woman arrested in Corridor 7 on Deck 6. Mixed statement, beware of the Drew. Beware of the Drew. More news at 11. Blame Loki. Okay, so that one works for me, especially because you used the. I like that. I love that. The Drew. Can we call him the Drew from now on?
Yeah,
thanks,
we call him the Drew. Yeah.
I love you, Loki. Thank you for the Drew.
Oh my gosh.
So Drew's girlfriend had a little bit of the Drew this afternoon. So let's move on.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry. I love you, but very funny that
the Drew stupped. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
The definite article.
Oh,
The definite article. The
Drew.
Drew killed the Cylon with his atomic flesh torpedo. Beware the Drew.
Can we leave that up for the rest of the show? Can we leave that one up for the rest of the show, please?
All right.
Just until another really good one comes along. Toxic Man Flu. You are the Babe Ruth of this chat tonight. Thank you so much, man. If you are a man, you might be a woman or someone who identifies as open. But
We're trying to misgender you, Toxic.
Yeah, I don't want to do that to you. TMF.
No, he's definitely a toxic male. Toxic, you bastard. I love you.
Yeah. Drew killed the Cylon with his atomic flesh torpedo. Beware the Drew. Come on, this is like gold. This is gold.
Let's get through it. We got about 45 minutes left in this.
All right. So, who wants to do the next cut to?
So the next one is Starbucks apartment, right? So go ahead.
No. The
Apollo finds Jammer.
Deck 12.
Yeah.
Small arms locker.
Yeah, but Apollo finds Jammer, and they only find out 6 rounds of how were they? Exploding rounds. I forget what they were called.
Explosive rounds. Yeah.
Explosive rounds, and was it 6? Only 6 people with guns that could use them. So I guess they had thought that other Marines had come through and gotten all of the shells, and they're stuck with just 1 shot each, basically, in order to take out Cylons. So that's awful.
Interesting thing here, Stephen. It was funny on first watch through. I swear to God, because we were at this point, most fans, we were all trying to pick out who the Cylons were, right? Man, this moment when they found Jammer in there and there were all those dead bodies and just Jammer, everybody was bitching. They're like, "That son of a bitch, Jammer's a fucking traitor. He's a Cylon." I swear to God, that was the consensus amongst at the time, God, we had our forums bombarded. Everybody was like, "Jammer, that son of a bitch, he's a Cylon. I know it, he's a Cylon." Everybody thought that. That was the first one they threw at us. That was a big misinformation curveball.
I can see why they did it, because they shot it.
Good night to Brian the Gravedigger. He's heading out.
Yeah, good night, Brian. Hey,
to see you. So happy that you're working and you're getting things done, and we can't wait to have you back.
Yeah,
and to further add, like, they shot that reintroduction of Jammer just like they did when they closed off the ammunition bay in the miniseries to the Cylon that they captured. The same angles, the same position. It was all very reflective. They did that purposefully.
Oh yeah,
to throw people a what if factor.
That was the first curveball we got at a possible Cylon, and everybody fell for it. Everybody was like, "Oh, he's a Cylon for sure. He's a Cylon for sure." I am so glad you pointed that out, Stephen.
Thank you, brother. Let's see. Next is Kara's apartment, and this is actually where my notes end. So if one of you guys could pick that up, that'd be great.
Yeah, go ahead, Raquel.
Okay, so we cut to Kara kicking in her apartment door. Apparently, Starbuck is a painter, a talented painter. And this is to Hilo's great surprise. Starbuck fires up the radio. Hilo cracks a beer. Starbuck doesn't crank Megadeth. Instead, it's piano.
Yeah,
He identifies this work as her father. Clearly, we are meant to see Starbuck as more than a brawler. Instead, we are to see her as a tortured artist with an unaddressed graffiti problem. Hilo finds some ramen to eat, and Starbuck lights a stogie. And we have a very shaky camera treatment here. And we're supposed to sort of, I think this is to sort of highlight or accentuate the chaos of this disgustingly filthy hoarding type of apartment that looks sort of like I don't know, like somebody who's gone to art school and but is also simultaneously running a crack house. So that's what the inside of her apartment looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a little odd. Anyway.
I have a couple of things I want to point out about this because, like, number one, when she turns on the radio and you kind of hear the music, you get that piano number that comes on, and what that song is, it's actually a song called Metamorphosis 1 by
Yes.
a classical guy named Philip Glass.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few songs that was used in the series, not on the soundtrack. This was actually, a Philip Glass song, as I said, and this wasn't Bear McCreary. Oftentimes, a lot of fans will figure that this is another Bear McCreary song. No, it is not. This is actually Metamorphosis. Yeah, this is Metamorphosis 1 by Philip Glass, and you can look that up. They actually find it on YouTube. Probably somebody has a thing up posted of it, but it's actually a pretty well known. It's played on a lot of classical stations and stuff. I've heard it before on classical music shows, but another interesting thing to point out is that painting, and that painting will come into play many, many, many times, especially in the later seasons. And I don't know, guys. Do we actually want to spoil?
No, we're not. We can't.
We can't. Yeah, okay. We can't. So you guys will find out that oh God, Parrot. Well, you just threw me off. Damn you!
What happened?
You know.
So,
well, it just so happens, Parrot Head, that I did last week watch a documentary on John Holmes.
Loki Morning of Mischief says Colonial News Alert. Commander Adama orders nuclear launch codes to be brought to the CIC. Tells crew, ready the Drews.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so I just wanted to back up just a little bit here because you talked about Ovid, you talked about Metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important that you I don't know, you probably already know this. I probably don't even have to tell this to you guys, but of course you know that Ovid's greatest work was Metamorphosis, right? So this is a poem that chronicles the history of the world from its creation to the deification of Julius Caesar. So it's got some mythos, and so anyway, so it ties into the whole Greek mythology thing.
Beautiful. I'm glad that you're here to give us that perspective. I like Greek mythology. Let me put it this way: I was very interested in it when I was a child, but I didn't get that deep into the lore of it. And I'm glad that you're here to inform us about this. Thank you.
Well, we're talking about creation and deification, and SD and I were discussing that. So it is SD and I were talking about this, and Stephen, you and I always talk about this layers of writing. So here, even in the musical piece that her father is playing, we've got Ovid, the Roman poet, and Metamorphosis through this song.
Beautiful.
Yeah. A lot of attention to detail here, and a lot of very intelligent thinking that is meant to draw in the cerebral mind, and it's very contemplative, and I have to give it props. I know it's kind of nerdy to mention this stuff, but I also want to make sure that we give credit where credit is due, and this writing is outstanding.
Okay, you know what I mean? I didn't mean to say no. Yes, it is very nerdy of you, and that is awesome, because that is what science fiction used to be. For those of you in the younger people in the chat that might be here, that's what sci-fi used to be. It was about making you think, using science fiction as a medium to entertain you. Your regular everyday person could watch this entertainment and enjoy it. But there's also nuggets in there. There's also hidden truths that you get out of well-written science fiction. This is not stuff you're going to get out of Disney Star Wars, and that's why we are reviewing Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, no one would particularly care or even realize it in some of this modern science fiction. The care and consideration and cerebral nature of Battlestar Galactica. Who would think that her father would be playing this song? And of course, this song would harken back to Ovid and Metamorphosis. It's beautiful. Really outstanding, and it shows an affinity within this writing and creative team for art and for this entire genre and this entire setup of this whole storyline.
Beautiful. Shall we continue to the next section?
Yeah,
Yeah.
rock and roll.
All right. I can't. I'm out of notes. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, you want me to
I
keep
was
going?
only half prepared.
Yeah, go ahead, Raquel.
Yeah.
Okay, so we cut to the president seeing multiple bodies in the corridor. Dee is there, and she's in shell shock. And we actually believe for a few seconds that she may have snapped her crayons. Like, you're not sure, like, is she ever going to come back? The president thinks that she has a concussion, and she says so. Okay. Do we have any comments from this section, or can we just keep motoring along?
Real quick, the president says to Billy when he's trying to, trying to get through to her, he's saying D and she's not responding. Use her command, use her, right. And as soon as he does that, that military training snaps right in, and she becomes aware of what's going on.
Yeah, conditioned soldier.
Yes, thank you.
Don't address the human, address the soldier.
Right.
And, so then we cut to Gata, Kelly, and Ty. And the update is that 2 Centurions have been killed. A third is trapped. It can't walk, but it's still shooting. And there are 2 Centurions headed for the decompression controls, just as Ty predicted. Mm-hmm. Any comments on this cut?
No, just again, Ty showing that he can be a leader when he has to be, and for being able to predict the movements that are taking place in a military situation. Yeah.
And that when he makes a decision that it is correct, and that he's way more like the old man, he's way more like Adama than he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
Especially from that last episode where he said, no, don't do that. And then the next episode, he did that, exactly that also. So then we cut to Cobalt. The chief and Callie are exhausted from traversing the landscape while hauling medical supplies. Callie asks the chief for a rest. The chief is silent, feeling the guilt of those who he's lost in the team. Callie swears at him and demands that he speak to her. He snaps out of it because she called him a mother fracker. They talk about how they cannot rest and need to get the med kit back to the team. They take off double time. Gaius finds his way back to base camp, and Crashdown lectures him about wandering off. Chief and Callie show up and turn in their teammates' dog tags. It's also too late for their other teammate. They mercy kill him. The chief pumps him with the equivalent of morphine and tells him they've been rescued and are going home. And of course, he repeats it as his dying breath. And Chief has done such a wonderful thing to allow someone to release themselves from such a traumatic, terrible, awful, painful death, to die in pain as well as suffocating. And the last thing he says is so comforting. He says something along the lines of, we're home, we're going home. And it's just, it really shows what an amazing, caring, compassionate, and worthy leader the chief is.
Hail to that. That's, I mean, if that doesn't touch you on some level, you don't have emotions. What a great scene, especially when Callie yells at him, "Speak to me, you mother fracker," and then it snaps him again. Something that snaps him out of this funk that he's in, just like with D, and he turns around and they just start laughing at each other. Yeah. That goes from heated serious to this friendship that they've developed, and he embraces her. Yeah. And that entire scene is beautiful. Like if you walk out of that, if you stop viewing that scene and don't have to pause it, or don't give yourself some kind of pause to reflect on how beautiful the emotions are acted and written within this scene, you don't have emotions.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, not only that, I mean, the very end of that scene, what Raquel was describing, is straight out of Dead Presidents, like 10 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what they did in there. Like it was about Vietnam and then the heist and whatnot. But they had a scene where they give a fellow soldier an overdose of morphine so that he could die in his sleep, essentially. Yeah. They tell him, like, we're going home.
Yeah.
And I mean, and they just managed to, they did it beat for beat in this one. They did it within their own context, and they did it within their own community to make it a bit more their own. But I was just having flashbacks to watching Dead Presidents like years and years prior. Like, that it's the same thing. They
Saving Private
it quite well.
Saving Private Ryan also.
Yeah, or as I like to call it, Saving Ryan's Privates. SD, What is I forget what the morphine is called in the show. What's the morphine called again?
I can't remember.
Oh yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I can't either.
Yeah. Anyways, it's a morphine-like substance, and wow, it's
Oh God.
But the thing that's interesting is that it's something that each individual carries, which is just like how it was done in the Vietnam War and for other military things. It was done so that the individual, if they're left alone, couldn't overdose themselves.
yeah. Fire in the back. Beware the Drew. Okay, this hashtag is gold, baby. This like I'm totally putting this up on Twitter like right after the show. Beware the Drew. Dude, like Toxic Man Flu, you are my hero, dude.
Oh God. I watched that cartoon as a kid. How dare you?
That's great.
Oh boy.
Jeez, so bad. Oh God, Canuck says, don't mess with the Drew. It's true. A WWE reference. He said I could put wrestling into anything. Oh God, man. You know, Parrot Head. Here's something Drew hears every night. Unleash the beast. Oh, God.
Wasn't Parrot Head the person who 2 weeks ago said, y'all need Jesus?
Yeah, exactly.
And look, this week, do you see what we've done to you, Parrot Head? You are now one of us. You are a part of the Pegasus actual podcast. You belong here. Sorry about that, man.
Oh, God.
Oh, boy. Danger of the dongers. Oh, God. Kalanuki, too far, too far. You are a deviant porg.
Oh, man. And then everybody's caught onto the hashtag. Look.
Yes, beware the Drew. I'm telling you. This shit's golden.
Yep. Parrot Head agrees with you. One of us. Oh.
Okay, so should we keep on motoring along?
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay. We cut to Lee and the team still looking for ammo. Lee reports to Ty. Then we quickly cut to the president, still on the way to sickbay. Dee is coming around and suggests Billy put his safety on since his gun is jammed into the front of his pants. And speaking of dongs, and they reroute. They have to reroute at this point. There's too much gunfire. It's quite close. And, you know, the Cylons are stepping the sort of, it sounds like I said earlier, like the drums of war as well as the hail of gunfire. So they have to reroute at this point. And then we cut to Ty telling Lee about the Cylon advancement and the route they're going to take in the ship. He sends Lee and his team on the same path the Cylons are on, and they make their way, and they start to organize cover. They start grabbing stuff from in the corridor and turning it into cover. Then we cut to the president, obviously very near the kill zone and the Centurions, because you could just hear it all around them. Then we cut to Lee hunkering down for incoming, and the machines attack. The machine is between Lee's team and the president's team. The Cylons are destroyed in a firefight. No, sorry, there were two Cylons. Everyone collects themselves, and the president's guard has a religious moment when he sees she's been shot through her blazer, but has been missed entirely. So it was so wonderful that Stephen said very early on in the show that guard was showing this reverence for the president, and here we see that reverence unabashed, manifested. He is beginning to address her almost as if she were a deity. He is gobsmacked. She has multiple bullet wounds in her blazer and yet is unscathed. Comments?
Yeah, I actually, I thought that even though it was a very small supporting bit role, I thought that Corporal did very well in this episode. He shined. Yeah,
for sure. I thought so too. I thought it was very cool because it was like, oh boy, wow, how's she going to handle this? You know, Stephen often talks about how the president handles her power and the nature of her own vision of herself. And absolute power corrupts absolutely, and she's been taken to task for a sort of false democracy and all of these things before, and now we see this her being faced with a different type of power, and that is this spiritual power, the power of the mythos, and her being a deity in it. So this is going to be another challenge, and we have yet to see how she will deal with that challenge. Will she be good about it and be virtuous about it, or will it allow her to become unethical? Dun, dun, dun.
Oh my gosh, these guys. Parrot Head just got it going on Twitter.
We have totally polluted Parrot Head. We have corrupted Parrot Head.
We have to further add on to that scene
on Twitter now.
What was that?
To further add to that scene, it's quite fascinating that we get dramatic irony payoff when Rosalind and her crew are going to the very section that the Cylons are going to, and there's no one there to protect it until the Adama reaches out to Ty and says, hey, this is where we are, this is where we can get to.
Yes.
So we have this whole entering into the lion's den, and they don't know anything about it. So it really ups the stakes, because you're thinking, okay, well, if they're going that way, will Lee's crew accidentally shoot upon the president and the corporal and Billy and them?
Yeah.
So
will they die in friendly fire?
Yeah, will they die in friendly fire? And it's really good how they build up the tension for that, because it's done for the entire third act.
Yeah, for sure. Fear the Raquel. She is after Ryan's private. Actually, I have a story to tell where that came from. Is when Saving Private Ryan came out, my ex and I, we owned a nightclub, and we had the most handsome doorman who worked for us. He was very handsome, very sweet, and so he was very he made sure that he made the most of it with the ladies to cast it as a story. And so one day we were all talking about Saving Private Ryan, and he had just been out dogging the night before, and he had a hand in sleeping with several of my waitresses and a whole bunch of my clientele. So I just said, well, instead of watching Saving Private Ryan, why don't we save Ryan's privates before they fall off? So that's actually where that saying comes from. Ryan, wherever you are, I hope that your parts did not turn green and fall off. You were a gigolo.
And then Dega, the Johnson has failed us. Long live the Drew. From the Drew soundtrack, dong, 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 Drewzilla scream.
Oh boy.
Oh God. Toxic Man put Drew Schwartz's biggest mind.
Beware the Drew.
Oh God.
That is a classic hashtag. It's never going away.
Oh, Jesus. Drew is so big, elephant.
Damn.
Oh my God.
Dozens of anime girls cried out in terror, and then were suddenly silent. Drewzilla's Revenge, coming soon to a theater near you. Rated NC-17.
Oh boy.
Not good.
It's a life of its own now.
Go ahead, read this one, Stephen.
Oh, patient, got Viagra? Doctor, nope, got something better. Try this. It's called the Drew.
Oh.
Again, with the definite article, it's just so wonderful. The Drew.
Oh, God.
I am 100% Drew lasted forever like a sex god. He has been able to have a substantive discussion with 3 very talented and special artists. That focus, hashtag beware the Drew.
Oh, God. Y'all know that joke about the man who makes the horse laugh, then cry in the bar? That guy is Drew.
Oh, boy, I don't want to know that. Parrot Head, y'all need Jesus.
All right.
Okay, so we cut to Caprica. Kara and Hilo are relaxing. Kara produces her vehicle keys. They drive off in her army-style Jeep. I would just like to say that, wow, she must have had like a miracle carburetor, because that thing just turned over like no problem. and it's like torrential. Do you remember the biblical rain? Because the entire planet's climate has been totally messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she turns that Jeep over, and it
may be an advanced Jeep that doesn't need a carburetor anymore, because even now cars today don't use
like
carburetors.
A Hummer?
Yeah, it looks exactly like a Hummer, and you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, like that was a mechanical miracle. By Jove.
Well, I mean,
only Stephen got that joke.
Yeah.
I mean, just because the planets were nuked doesn't mean the vehicles were messed up.
Yeah, I know, but it's been sitting a long time. Don't you have to turn the car over? Like,
wasn't it inside though? Like inside a garage?
No, it was in like a. I thought it was like in a garage area.
Yeah, because
it was an
a gated
Everlast
area that it drove through.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Like
so let's keep
carport.
going.
It was an Everlast.
It was
Well, no, and listen, they have flying
How is that
vehicles that can
true?
traverse space. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure their cars should be able to run after some water locking.
Yeah. It's just I was just struck by it. I think because the Jeep looks so very science fiction-y. It just looked like
It's very contemporary. Yeah.
It was just it's just your garden variety, Hummer that
With the British Columbia license plate on the back.
Right.
Yeah. So then we cut to Dee and Billy, and Dee is in the hospital, and now it's clear that she's okay. She didn't snap her crayons. She did have a concussion, and they make up, and Billy still has all of his fifis, and they kiss, and it's wonderful. And then we cut to Adama's bedside. Dr. Cottle is on the way. The president asks Ty if a jail cell still awaits her. Ty says, "That's right." A guard takes her away. Ty says to Lee, "I can't believe you sided with that woman over the old man. I'd rather put a gun to my head, and you did. As far as I'm concerned, you're not fit to wear that uniform." Lee responds with, "You're right about that part. I'm not fit to wear this uniform. Maybe I never was. But then again, neither were you." Ty nods in agreement. And this is one of those moments I was talking about where we're allowed to see him being very contemplative. He's growing as a person and as a character. And you can see that he's not nodding viciously or sarcastically or like, "Yeah, whatever, buddy." He's really taking this in, and he's really agreeing that he is a profoundly flawed man. Mm-hmm. So Lee continues, "But this isn't my ship or yours. It's his. And when he wakes up, he'll decide what to do with both of us." Mm-hmm. Ty nods, and Lee kisses his dad and walks out of the room.
Oh, you're also missing the other part that
"Thank the gods, I didn't have kids."
Well, there's that, but you're also sidestepping the fact that Lee challenges Ty and reminds him that he's also not fit to wear the uniform.
Yeah, I said that.
Oh, you did?
Where were you? Yeah,
where was that? Yeah, where was that?
Didn't he have the line, "Demanding job commanding a Battlestar"?
Oh, I don't know. I took down the quote. Lee responds with, "You're right about that part. I'm not fit to wear this uniform. Maybe I never was. But then again, neither were you."
Yeah.
I know it's an agreement.
That was such a good line back there because it's just
everybody talks shit.
I think that Lee and Ty are starting to realize that they've put the old man on a pedestal, and that the old man deserves the pedestal, whereas everyone else is profoundly flawed, and it's a miracle anybody can get anything done because they've all made mistakes, and I think that they're all being very adult about it. And in a way, it's not very realistic because a lot of people think a whole hell of a lot of themselves and aren't willing to look at their reflection and to be edified and to grow and to maybe change their opinion or their mindset or to accept responsibility for their behavior. So in this way, I think that the writers are showing that both of these guys, despite their flaws, are more than deserving of command as well. You don't have to be Adama. You don't have to be the old man. You don't have to be perfect. You can also be a piece of poop or a slight piece of poop. There is a spectrum of command.
But not only that, like both of them stepped up when the chips were down.
Yeah.
And what Lee said earlier is like sometimes you just have to roll the hard 6, which Lee doesn't understand. He just knows his father says it, but you can tell from that mission he understands what it means now.
I love that. I loved that line. That wasn't that so cute when he turns around. I hate to use the word cute, but when you're talking about your kid, that's how you feel. It doesn't matter if your kid's 30. I thought it was so cute when he turned around and he's, I don't know what it means, but my dad always says it. I thought that was it, you know, I've talked about this before on the show, and I'm just going to mention it again. The people in charge of this show are so wonderful in their treatment of fathers, of single fathers, and of adult relationships, adult children, and their male parents. I love this father-son relationship. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And as Drew has said in the past, we get to see that in the same team when we look at DS9 and Cisco and his son. And I just want to say, it is just so wonderful. The world needs more of this. You know, it's not a cocky son who's all like, well, this is what it means. He's like, I don't know. My dad says it all the time, though. It's just, it's so magical, guys. This is magic.
Yeah, they really brought that dynamic over, and you know, I'm glad that they did, because the father-son dynamic is missing. And my God, for the people that actually have gotten to watch, you know, the recent marathon on Sci-Fi and get to see Battlestar for themselves, you know, it's good. It reinforces some good values, and you're not getting the rampant feminist perspective all the time, and you're not getting, you know, just one side of the fence. You know, you're getting actual human relationships. It's not about, you know, what someone's got between their legs. It's about humanity. And that is what is so beautiful about this show. They brought back, they brought all the best aspects of Deep Space Nine, all the really good deep things in Deep Space Nine over to this, you know, the principles that they had established, you know, the ways of showing humanity's flaws and its strengths. And I love that, you know, this show really shined because of that. And in so many ways, this show is the antithesis of what's out there predominantly now, and what's being pandered to. And that's why in so many ways this show is such a masterpiece.
But I wouldn't attribute it to feminism or not feminism. I because, you know, for me, the dictionary definition of feminism is this radical notion that women have the same legal rights under the law as men. And for me, it stops there. I refuse to
Where's your husband?
I refuse to politicize the word. However, I 100% agree with you that right now there is a cultural phenomenon of misanthropy, of this hatred of men, to demonize men, and to be overly demonstrative, to bludgeon the idea of any male figure, whether it's a person of color or not, or any shade in between. It just seems to be this demonization, this castigation of the very image of the male.
Well, it's a type of strategy of divide and conquer, where everything that we've done so far has been teamwork. Like, the men and women need to work together in order for us to continue as a species, and that we have this other group of people that are saying, no, we have to divide. Men are evil. Men are bad. Men don't do anything. And it's just so counterproductive. And the fact that it's being funded by some big companies is just ridiculous. It's like, how can they think they can stand to make profit on this when you only have, at best, and it's not even entirely true, but at best, half of your audience, right?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't mean to go TFM historian just for 1 second. I just want to make the point, since we're on it, that, you know, we've had certain entertainments. Certain entertainments have been accused of pursuing a certain narrative when creating their content, and that this narrative is its goal is really kind of a segregation. It's a separation. It's to create divides, not bring us together. And a lot of this has been in sci-fi and the type of entertainments that I follow. And, you know, we're always accused that now you're overreaching. You're looking into something that's not there. And then, you know, Disney Lucasfilm goes and hires Leslie Headland, or you can hear her speak. This is a new hire. We've heard plenty of quotes from different writers and different creators from that part of the industry before, but we hear quotes from her talking about how I'm silly white people. You're not diverse. I'm not going to make content for straight white men. Just these really sexist, racist, just these divisive comments. And this show comes from a time when that was not the prevalent way of thinking, and the development that went into characters, whether they were straight or gay. There's a gay character on this show right now. You don't even know it right now, right?
Because that's because in the Battlestar Galactica universe, a gay person, that's just one aspect of who they are.
Right.
It isn't all they are. They're not a political party. They're actually a person who just likes to have sex with the same sex. And
not necessarily have sex, but that's the type that they fall in love with.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's always deeper than sex. Like that's the other thing.
But you get my meaning, right?
Yeah,
You just so happen to not be heterosexual. It's just, for me, I have a lot of lesbian, gay, and bi and trans friends. And so when I look at them, I don't see their sexuality. They're actually my friends. They're people. They're moms. They're dads. They're sisters and daughters. And so, Stephen, I totally agree with you. I love how Gata is Gata. He's like this wonderful, smart, wonderful, amazing person who was so guilty about losing the fleet. Was he's a great guy. He's a wonderful man, and he's not defined by who he wants to share his naughty bits with or who he loves.
Exactly. Yeah. And on top of that, too, the one thing that you have to point out is that when you have someone claiming to be a writer and treating characters this one-dimensionally, it sort of tips their hat that they're not really a writer. Because no writer thinks one-dimensionally about their characters. They try to make up a full life for every character that they write. They don't just slot them in and say, this is a demographic, boom, there we go. And even though right now parts of the industry are funding this aspect, it's definitely not as the whole. There's just writers out there that are playing it smart and saying, I'm not saying anything because once this all implodes, I'm going to be the option next up to start doing this, and I'm going to learn from their mistakes and not be so stupid and ignorant. And it's going to happen.
What's dangerous about all of this, though, SD, is the vehicle that they have in the medium of social media. Because once you add this sanctimonious quality to it, and you have very young minds, they create what's popular. So what ends up
weaponizing compassion, and that's the other part too.
And then all of a sudden it becomes the deplorables. These are people who we can't talk to, and so on and so forth. It's a very partisan. It's a very peripherried. It's a very toxic and radical way of thinking and being, and it's terrible for individuals, and it's terrible for society.
And it has no place.
50% of the population. If you don't like 50% of the population, you can't just go on saying to yourselves, well, because this is hegemony, and now we're the dominating class, and we're going to trample you. Racism,
you can't have revenge.
Prejudice. If you want to fight that, giving more of the same is not how you cure that.
Exactly, it's not. And we're not spacefaring species, so we can't say, okay, you 50% don't like it, go find another planet. Like, we can't do that. And even if we did, it would still hurt us as well, because we still rely on that other 50% to make sure that we can be habitable on this planet.
And entertainment is not the platform for these types of discussions.
It's not.
Town halls are the places for these discussions. Kitchen tables are the places for these discussions. The entertainment is used to unify us. And if anything, if you want to affect the change socially or politically, then present me a story that can let me think on all sides and let me decide for myself. But don't ham-fist me with something.
That's it, exactly. That is it. You don't pontificate, you just pose the question and you explore the debate.
There was a time in history before the Enlightenment where everything that we read was didactical. And that's just a fancy schmancy word, a word nerd, for all entertainment and art to be instructive. So it's actually instructing you on how you should behave and what you should believe. We
Because that's the
actually got
perversion
to a
of the
point
origin
in
of story.
society where we were mocking that because it's very presumptive, and where it becomes dangerous is when it becomes highly partisan, because
Yep.
then it's propaganda, and then it's didactical propaganda. So basically, you're using arts and entertainment for this partisan outlet. Everything becomes about politics. You have to admit that it is absolutely insane that Patrick Stewart actually went to 3 different magazines and said, I want to make sure that this show becomes an instrument to attack Brexit and Trump.
Yes.
I don't care how you feel about Trump. I don't care how you feel about Brexit. I'm Canadian, so I don't have a stick in that fire. But I will tell you this. This is dangerous. This is propaganda. This is sanctimonious, dangerous, powerful, extreme periphery politics, and saying that it is innocuous, that it can't hurt society or people, is to be very, very naive.
Raquel, would you come on my show TR4?
It's active ignorance because
absolutely, I would love to do that, Stephen.
Thank
You
you.
know that I love you very much. You're just such a great friend, and I do adore you, and it would be my pleasure. It would be an honor to be on your show.
All right.
No, because you make a very good point, because didactic storytelling is not storytelling, because storytelling in its origin was educational. It started with, don't eat that berry, it's poisonous, and I'll tell you why I know it's poisonous, because this guy ate it, he got sick and died. Like, that's your very basic rudimentary, and that's what story became. And it was foundation in education. It's like, I'm going to teach you something, and this is the best way for me to teach it to you so that you remember it, by giving you things that you can identify with, that you can relate to, that you will not forget, so you can tell it on to the next generation and the next generation.
Yes.
And what we've done is we've been able to take the lessons and the things we've learned and be able to do that through the means of fiction, in order to not have it be literal example, but like a theory. Like, I have this idea. Maybe I'm not going to poke that giant saber-toothed tiger with a stick, because I've seen that it attacks other creatures that are the same size as me, but not other humans. So possibly I might stir the pot if I do that. Like, and that's how you get to where we've got before, where we're able to actually have our entertainment, where you're telling an entertaining story by posing a question that maybe not everyone has thought about, and then you're exploring it through every avenue as to where can you get not only the most conflict and drama out of it, but maybe you might stumble on an idea that hasn't been thought of before. Maybe you're not pontificating it, or maybe you're not ham-fisting an answer, but you're saying, maybe we can go in this direction, but I leave it up to you to actually explore it yourself outside of the entertainment field, because that's where those conversations belong.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Art and entertainment can be for beauty. It can be for, it doesn't have to be political. And when we see everybody sort of moving towards this idea, or most people moving towards this idea, that they can use it as a placebo politic, that if they say they watch Picard, that's their civic engagement, they are living in a dream world, because that is not civic engagement. Civic engagement is boots on the ground, changing the world. It's volunteering, it's helping, it's reading, it's committing to studies, it's committing to charities, it's actually being out in the world and making a difference.
It's interaction and reduction of suffering.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's not watching Patrick Stewart indulge himself quite grossly.
Well, basically, Picard was basically masturbation, and he doesn't know how to do it properly. Because on top of that, too, it's more partisan, because one thing first thing I learned in college is that every story has politics, but it's not politics in the partisan aspect. It's not politics like political parties. Sure. It's just your point of view, your perspective, how you approach things, but not necessarily under a tribal party or anything like that. So there's always going to be politics in the story, but people are going to abuse that perspective and say it means left or right, which it doesn't. It just means the personal point of view of the author and how they approach whatever story they're writing.
But we have entered a very dangerous zone when we have self-publishing and we have young minds, because these young women get on the internet every day and they learn about the toxic male, how men are not redeeming. Men have no place in arts and entertainment. They have no place in a painting, no place in a film. That that they don't belong and they must be shunned. And this becomes the currency of their social exchange, to the point where they even engage their vanity metrics and go out of their way to cull votes, to say nasty and terrible things. And we have that working with the Hollywood machine to boost that. And I just fear that it has become, like I said, highly hyper partisan, and therein it becomes propaganda. And it doesn't matter how well-meaning your propaganda is. It doesn't matter how virtuous it is or goodly it is. It's still partisan propaganda.
Yep. And
All right,
the
guys.
part of propaganda is it's an idea without an argument.
Yeah.
That's what propaganda is. It's an idea without an argument.
Echo.
It can't be defended.
I don't know where the echo came from.
All right.
Steven, I love you.
I love all of you guys. We segued from the Pegasus Actual podcast into author Stephen Walton's channel Thursday night. All right, so sorry, the chat. Go ahead, Drew.
Hey, listen, we covered something that Stephen. We've talked about this on multiple channels, multiple streams, and it's not going away. And this is the core value of the fandom. This is why we're upset. This is why we are fighting to get back to good storytelling and escapist entertainment for these very reasons. And I'm so glad that, we get on an opportunity at times to really open up and point out in a passionate manner just what the problem is, because it is a systemic problem. Let's move on really quick, because we've got some last theories here, and then we'll go around and give our final impressions. So Rambling Canuck says, forget Blue Chew, just get the Drew. Loki is on fire, Adega is burning, Chad is on fire like Drew. Beware the Drew.
You forgot the Drew.
Captain Trek says, #beware the Drew, #blame Loki.
That is Captain Trek. That is like my next tweet. Love you, dude.
What did Vegas do as the Drew? Then get your penicillin. Jesus Christ, Parrot. Drew's bigger than a blue whale.
This was our moral compass 2 weeks ago, and look what we've done to Parrot Head. We're terrible people.
Waitress caught Drew leaving the bathroom and passed out. Adega laughed so hard he fell out of his chair, saying, "Damn, that was just from the tip."
It's only getting worse.
Parrot Head said, "In Vegas, he's clean. In TJ, when you have the Drew lasting more than 4 hours, seek medical help, preferably a redheaded nurse."
I can't.
Oh boy. You actually should have used the compound hyphen there, because red-headed nurse means something totally different there.
Parrot Head said, "Ever been to a Drew show?" Oh man. Oh God.
I know, Parrot Head. It is my fault. I love you, man. I'm sorry.
Parrot Head says, "You want to see a Drew show?" Oh God. Loki said,
Oh God.
in Mexico, the donkeys made a see the Drew.
Oh my God.
Oh man. And then
just wait, can I interrupt you? Okay, everybody in the chat, can you please go to Drew's Twitter and please respond with some of these amazing chat comments to his TMI post where he's like, "Ooh yeah, afternoon delight today, feeling frisky and satisfied." Go find that tweet and respond with these, please, guys. Please,
just spam it with all these funny.
Yes, please.
Oh man! All right. So then people were responding. Their Parrot Head says, "It's too bad we'll not see another show like BSG anytime soon."
Right.
Toxic Man Flu said, "Isn't the whole point of the series to make us take a look at internally and reflect on what makes us human? Yes. It doesn't matter where you came from, what you do, or what you become. Being human is a choice." That is a very good point, Tox.
what makes
good
us
point.
human, what it means to be human.
Yes.
What is the real definition of human nature? That's still like considered undefined by some philosophers, but my point of view is that human nature is the fact that we're able to work together and persevere, and we do so by reducing the suffering among each other.
Jesus
That's
Christ.
as far as I'm going to go with that.
Thank you
Jesus
for your
Christ.
comments, Wes. Moody, that was your comments about me are very much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Parrot Head with Beware the Drew. Toxic Man Flu. That's Drew's peeing. It's so big it wakes up and shifts.
Did you just say peen? You just said peen. Like,
Yeah.
have you been hanging around with emo millennials? How do you
No.
know the word peen?
Kermit the Log.
I was trying to be nice. Drew's yeah, God. Oh jeez, oh man.
Drew's so big he causes was. Hold on, go back. What was that?
Solar blackouts.
Yeah, solar blackouts. Responsible for that now.
Wow.
Oh man, let's see. Toxic or Loki's taking off. Good night, Loki.
Good night, Loki. Thank you, brother,
Good
for
night,
being
Loki.
here.
Take care, Loki.
Thank you so much for everything tonight. You were a blast. Truly, you are, Loki. A total blast. Come on
Hashtag
back.
blame
Yeah,
Loki.
thanks for modding too, Loki. Drew's so big he can be seen from space. The asteroid belt is caused by Drew.
We've made a monster. Look at what we brought.
Oh man. Jeez.
Are you happy?
Are you read it, Raquel?
Are you happy that all I care about, we can stay out of our bedrooms, except for Drew, who needs 3 rooms. Beware.
Beware the
Oh,
Drew.
good God, yeah.
What is that supposed to say? That's
I
kind
think
of
out
out of our bedrooms. Yes,
Yeah.
that's okay. Toxic Man Flu. It is not easy to communicate on these tiny metal boxes. It can be a shit show sometimes. No problem.
Toxic Man Flu said, "Man, this panel is on point every single stream. I appreciate that."
Thank you.
Thank you.
Drew, oh God,
Drew's so
Drew's
big.
so big his pecker has its own zip code.
Look, we're gonna get sanctioned if we keep it up with Drew's parts.
Oh man, oh God,
So bad. This is the Drew Dongcast, sponsored in part by StreamYard.
Oh jeez, oh man, oh God. And
So
then
the sun and the moon are really not the sun and the moon, then, huh?
and
Yeah.
then a
Even though we don't put her on the moon.
SD.
then a Dega responds to that.
There's
That's
no
no-
moon. That's
That's
Drew's
true.
left one.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy.
No, this is great. Parrothead. Drew's so big he can slap you from the other side of the country.
Jesus Christ.
That's not. Yeah, you know. Now we're starting to get into the dad jokes.
This is the Pegasus actual Dongcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Dongcast, and it's all dad jokes. It's Dad Dongcast. Brought to you by
The last,
and the Drew.
the last eclipse was not the moon. Drew was pitching the tent.
Dad jokes.
Yep.
Oh God, man. Oh Jesus Christ. All right.
All right, that's enough.
Oh, God.
This is the last one.
Join Drew home.
Oh, Palanuki, bringing it home.
Yes.
You're digging
Hail
it hard.
to the chat. We love you guys. Thank
Oh,
you for
God,
being here
man.
and being so interactive, man. This show wouldn't be anything without you.
Yes. So, final impressions on the episode, I give it an 8 out of 10. I thought Valley of Darkness was awesome. And, this has always been one of my favorites. So, it was hard. I always waver between 8 and 8.5. I'm glad nobody made it funny when I said it was hard. But damn you, don't say it. I know it's Raquel. I know something's on the tip of your tongue. Stop it.
I won't.
With the
I promise.
puns, Drew, come on.
But anyways, yes. I give it an 8. 8 out of 10. Very good episode. One of my favorites of the entire series.
Okay.
Go
All
ahead,
right.
Steven.
All right. Yeah. I have to give it I'm going to have to give this. An 8 with a plus a hard 8 inches gave me enough Candice in this episode. I love
Just stole my joke. Just stole my joke. Steven, you jerk.
All right. Gave me a lot of Candice. I love seeing her. Just the overall episode is great. I liked the tone. I liked getting to see the Cylons up close and the kind of damage they could do.
Yeah.
I really love the mysticism aspect of this show.
Yeah.
I really do. So it gave us that one scene with Baltar and the baby and Adama and all of that. That is one of the best scenes that I've seen so far, in as far as what it meant to me and what it means in the future of the show. So 8 plus 8.
Okay. I'm gonna. Do you want to read it since you can't handle it? Just do it.
Toxic Man please said, I need to laugh. Days have been long and hard. Like, nah, it's time for bed. Parrot said, I didn't know Drew had that much blood in his body.
Okay, that's enough. No
all
more penis.
All right, go ahead, Raquel.
Okay, I'm going to give this episode a solid 7 out of 10.
Okay.
And I'm going to give the scene that happens, the whole Deliverer Messiah scene, the entire sequence, the entire cut, I'm actually going to give that a 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So outstanding, the layers and of writing, the care with which it was written, and just the knowledge of classics as well as biblical literature, and just once again this magical literary device. Absolutely love it. And while I have the floor, I would just like to say that I love this chat. Sometimes we get silly and goofy and we start doing like locker room humor or pub humor. I just want you to know that I love all you guys. I think you're great, and the ladies too, and anybody who identifies as open to something else. I love you guys, and I really appreciate being here. I consider it a great honor, and I love this panel. I think you guys are just great, and I love working with you. And with that, I'll hand it over to SD.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, this isn't work. This is relaxation. That is for sure. It just happens to appear like work. But yes, I quite enjoyed this episode more than the previous one. But I think I wouldn't have enjoyed it so much if the previous one didn't happen. These two go hand in hand because they do wrap up this larger overall story, and it does kind of wrap it all up in a nice little button, because the next episode is going to be a brand new set of problems to face, aside from the stranded crew on Kobol and Kara and Hilo getting off that planet. This looks like it's going to be longer type of a story arc. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I love the consequences that happened from that paid off, that were set up in the previous episode, and I really liked Gaius's little vision that he had there and all the questions that it raised. It spun for a great debate on tonight's show. So props to the writing staff of Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now we'll let everybody plug their projects and channels here in a second. Guys, for those of you that know who Comics Division is, make sure that you pop over to his channel here in the next 5 minutes. SD and I will be heading over there to be on Comics Division show.
Yeah,
I think they already started, so we're you guys will be able to transition over quite easily.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure that as soon as this broadcast goes off, my Twitter is going to blow up. I have a feeling.
Sorry, I love you, man. I love you. But you are the Drew.
Maharishi Boxy say, when you play with the Drew, you'll end up like Ty's eye. Don't be a Ty. Oh, God. All right, so let's go around it really quick and plug everything. Stephen, go ahead.
You can find me at my channel, author Stephen Walton, The Fourth Wave on Saturdays and TR4 on Tuesdays, and I'm here every Thursday. For those of you who backed the book, The Fandom Menace Volume 1, I have books. I'm waiting for bookmarks to come in that was made for us by some Comicsgate creators, and so I'll be shipping them out for free along with the books. And I'd also like to mention that since they're heading over to Comics Division, he is going to be a contributor for the volumes. As I've said before, there are certain topics that exist within entertainment and the issues that we have with what's being given to us. And one of those involves comics. And in the first book, I have a chapter on comics, and so I've asked Comics Division to write a chapter for Volume 2 about the rise and fall of the comic book industry. So check that out, and hail to everybody in the chat. Thank you for coming.
Raquel, do you have anything that you would
Okay,
like to plug?
Yes, author Stephen Walton, I love you. I just think that you are the cat's meow. I need a signed copy of your book. Sometimes, well, all the time I'm on Orville Nation, but we move around a lot. I do Power Women Wednesdays, but sometimes it's on Tuesday, and sometimes we move around special guests and famous people who we have on the show. So I would recommend going to nation_Orville on Twitter, and you can find me there. You can always find me here on Thursday because I love this crew and I have a great time with them. Other than that, I don't have my own channel. I'm an academic. I'm just a nerd who likes other nerds. So that's the extent of my promotion. SD?
And Raquel, I love you, boo.
Oh, I love you too.
I love you, sweetie.
Oh yes, I mean I love everybody on this panel. It's great to also not be the only heavy lifter among these groups, because we got Drew with his hardcore fandom on BSG, author Stephen Walton with his great insights onto the works of literature. We've got Raquel, who's got a massive background in history and communications, so that always helps a lot. And then you have myself, just this script doctor who is all about the history and screenwriting techniques for good storytelling. And you can find me at youtube.com/scriptdoctor and on Twitter at scriptdoctorphd. And hop on over to Comics Division's channel right after the show. I'm sure it's going to be just as much fun as what we had tonight, dealing with some of the subjects that we've addressed today.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Make sure next week that you join us for season 2, episode 3. We are going to cover Fragged, and like I said at the top of the broadcast, we're going to have a special guest. We will have Cat King with us.
Yes, executive producer Cat King.
Yeah, executive producer Cat King. She's working on Project Abaddon, and then she'll explain what that is next week, so you guys can hear about that. And then she will help us break down the episode. So we will see you then, and thank you. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other. So say we all.
So say we all.
Say we all.